This podcast of the Equine Forum is brought to you by the University of Louisville Equine Industry Program at the College of Business. It all begins in 15 seconds right after this word from our podcast sponsor.
The University of Louisville Equine Industry Program at the College of Business is now offering a graduate certificate, which can be completed in 15 or 30 weeks and be done as a standalone or used as 20% of your MBA. Classes at both the undergraduate and graduate level are forming now for August.
This is HRRN, horse racing's voice.
But it's the big two. It's pleasantly perfect in Medallion Auto. They're stride for stride, 150 meters out. The wins the quickly. The hearts are pounding. Pleasantly perfect puts his head in front. It cracks Medallion Auto. Pleasantly perfect draws clear. Wins the cup. Pleasantly perfect beats Medallion Auto. 3/4 of a length. Up front, Swiss Skydiver has been masterfully handled by Paco Lopez. Turns for home with the advantage. Lucrezia to the attack is second. Lake Avenue is now third. But as they go to the first finish line, they left Paco alone. And Swiss Skydiver is a Gulfstream Park Oaks winner. She went all the way by 3 in the end.
Welcome to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires.
Here comes Concerns from the back of the pack. What a late run. Through the stretch and to the wire. Concern gobbling a friend on the outside. Blooming affair between horses. Concern from last to first to win it by a long neck.
Now with an eighth of a mile to go, Holy Bull has led every step of the way and has a commanding 4.5 now 5-length lead. The battle will be for second. Halo's going to drive the rails and go for Gin. A dramatic performance this afternoon by Holy Bull.
Now here's Mike Penna.
Good morning once again, everyone, and welcome to the show that launched a network. It is the Equine Forum, and it is all presented by TwinSpires right here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. Mike Penna, Baron of the Backstretch, excited to have you starting your Saturday morning with me right up until 11 a.m. Eastern on Sirius 162, XM 207, our affiliates in Lexington, Louisville, and across the country, and streaming worldwide and podcast on our website, horseracingradio.net, or wherever you are accessing your podcasts. How about those last two race calls you just heard in our opening montage? Concern winning the 1994 Arkansas Derby, and Holy Bull taking the Florida Derby that same year. If you recall, the two would meet later that summer and put on an incredible show in the Travers at Saratoga. That was the race, by the way, in which Tom Durkin provided a couple of his more memorable lines in what was a brilliant announcing career, but there were a couple of calls in that race which really stand out to me, and I think stand out to a lot of racing fans. The first came as the field approached the quarter pole.
And Mike Smith lets the bull roll. He's in front by 5 as they come to the quarter pole. But there is cause for concern.
Cause for concern. His second in that very same race came as the two were coming down to the wire.
Concern is coming hard under Jerry Bailey. It's still Holy Bull desperately trying to hold. Concern a final thrust, but it is Holy Bull as game as a racehorse can be coming down to the wire. Holy Bull wins. What a hero.
Vintage Tom Durkin. And that is a race, for me personally, being such a big Holy Bull fan, I also really liked Concern. So being a huge fan of both of those horses, that's a race I will never forget. I was there in person for it at Saratoga 30 years ago. Concern would, of course, go on to win the 1994 Breeders' Cup Classic at Churchill Downs. Holy Bull would go on to his Hall of Fame career. And when you look at that year's crop of 3-year-olds, again, 30 years ago, it included Tabasco Cat, who would go on to earn more than $2.3 million in his career. You had Kentucky Derby winner Gopher Gin, who banked about $1.3 million. And then you had Dramatic Gold, an earner of more than $2.5 million for trainer Craig DeLassy. That impressive list led me to do a little more digging. Once I discovered those horses all in that same crop, I started looking at the winner of the 1994 Bonnie Mistakes, which later today, by the way, is going to be renewed as the Gulfstream Park Oaks for 3-year-old fillies. That race in 1994 was won by eventual Hall of Famer inside information. And the winner of the fantasy stakes at Oaklawn that year, which again going to be renewed in Arkansas later today, was the brilliant Texas-bred Tu Altizano, who would go on to take the Grade 1 Coaching Club American Oaks later that summer. That season's 3-year-old fillies 30 years ago also included Kentucky Oaks winner Sardula, the daughter of Stormcat, owned by the late Jerry Moss, and multiple Grade 1 winner Lakeway, the daughter of Seattle Slew, who earned nearly $1 million for trainer Gary Jones. You want to talk about a golden era, or at least a golden year, for a 3-year-old crop. 1994 was a stellar year for those divisions. Something to keep in mind as you're watching those 3-year-old races later today. You just never know what type of greatness you could be witnessing. So enjoy every moment. I think going into those races in 94, yeah, we knew inside information was pretty darn good. We knew Holy Bull was pretty special. We didn't know how special those youngsters would eventually turn out to be. We knew Concern, he was a Maryland bred. We knew Concern a little bit, but we really didn't. Concern wasn't on a lot of radars going into the Arkansas Derby. Certainly not like Holy Bull and inside information were. But boy, did he prove his worth later in the year. You're going to hear from Hall of Fame trainer Shug McGaughey. He knows all about greatness, and he's hoping his lightly raced but super talented Conquest Warrior can take him back to Churchill Downs on the first Saturday in May with a big effort in today's Florida Derby. You're going to hear from Shug at 8:15. Not only will I ask him about the Florida Derby, we're going to talk about inside information. Shug, of course, the trainer of that tremendous filly. I'll ask him about her and how special she was. And one of the great things about Shug and so many of the folks that we have here on the program, when you start talking to jockeys that are Hall of Famers, you start talking to trainers that are Hall of Famers, and you start asking them about these great horses that they've had the chance to be around in their careers, they remember every detail of what happened with that horse. And jockeys remember every detail of what happened with a specific race. It's incredible to me. And I'm talking about going back 30 years. I guarantee you, Shug knows every detail and every step that inside information took. That's what's so cool about welcoming a guy like Shug McGaughey to the program. I think you're really going to enjoy that visit. Again, it comes up in just a few minutes at 8:15 Eastern. Jockey Flavien Prat is coming off a massive weekend of his own, teaming up with trainer Brad Cox at the Fairgrounds to sweep last Saturday's Louisiana Derby and Fairgrounds Oaks. Today, the duo looks to continue that hot streak with Timberlake in the Arkansas Derby. Flavien will join me in the second hour of the program at 9:40 Eastern. You won't want to miss that visit. Today is also Dubai World Cup Day. That program is already in full swing. The World Cup set to go shortly after 12:30 Eastern time. So that will be after we get off the air, about an hour and a half after we wrap up the show here. You'll have plenty of time to head over and check out the Dubai World Cup and a couple of the races preceding it, too. You're going to hear from Jerry O'Dwyer, who is the trainer of Sibelius, going in the Golden Shaheen, looking to defend his title there. I'm going to bring you sound bites from Joey Peacock, who is the owner of Senor Buscador in the Dubai World Cup. You'll hear from Pat Cummings talking about Croupi, and you'll hear from jockey Christophe Lemaire talking about his mount in the Dubai World Cup, Derma Sotogake. All of that right around 8:35 Eastern time. I'm also going to welcome Dr. Stuart Brown to the program. He'll have an update on the safety initiatives that he and his team in Kentucky have been working diligently on putting together, and some of the great strides that they have made on equine safety in the Bluegrass State. He's going to talk about that with me at 9 o'clock Eastern. And, of course, all of that comes up ahead of next weekend's spring meet at Keeneland. Bluegrass Stakes Day next Saturday. We'll be talking plenty about that on the program, but going to get a chance to talk to Dr. Stuart Brown about that at 9 Eastern. Poll question today. Which Derby prep will ultimately have the most significant impact on the 3-year-old division this year? So I'm going to ask you to break out your crystal ball, kind of look ahead, look at the field, look at the horses that are in there today, and tell me which prep will ultimately have the most significant impact on the 3-year-old division this year. Is it the Florida Derby or is it the Arkansas Derby? I think it's a very interesting question. Obviously, Fierceness, Hades, horses like that, Conquest Warrior, they all make up a very strong Florida Derby. But I think Timberlake's the real deal. So, if you like Timberlake, if you're a fan of his, maybe you go that direction. Maybe you think, okay, and maybe there's other horses in the Arkansas Derby you feel are going to have a significant impact on this division later in the season, and you don't feel like those horses in the Florida Derby that are more highly regarded at this point, maybe more hyped at this point. Maybe you don't feel like those horses are going to continue on. So let me know your thoughts. Which of today's Derby preps will ultimately have the most significant impact on the 3-year-old division this year? Is it the Florida Derby? Is it the Arkansas Derby? You can go to our page on X and let us know, at HRRN. You can go to Horse Racing Radio Network on Facebook as well to cast your vote. And if you don't do social media, that ain't no problem at all. You can email the show, mike@horseracingradio.net, and let me know which race you feel will have the biggest impact on that 3-year-old division. So here's the lineup. Shug McGaughey coming up in just a couple of minutes. You'll hear all of the sound bites from Dubai in the second segment at 8:35. The Kentucky bred update and calling all 3-year-olds comes up toward the end of the first hour of the program as well. Dr. Stuart Brown at 9 Eastern, 9:40. It is Flavien Prat, and sandwiched in between Dr. Brown and Flavien is going to be Buff Bradley for this week's edition of Kentucky Bred. 10 o'clock Eastern, hour 3 begins with Vance Hanson with this week's TwinSpires Triple Play. Kurt Becker, Stroll Through Racing History at 10:20. And at 10:30, I Ask, They Answer with Dale Romans and Tim Wilkin talking about some of the hot topics in the sport today. And I will also pose that same question I just asked you. I will pose that same question to Dale and Tim in the final segment of the show. Should be interesting to get their take on those topics. So much coming your way. It's a busy 3 hours. It begins next. This is the Equine Forum presented by TwinSpires on HRRN, Horse Racing's voice.
You're listening to HRRN, Horse Racing's voice.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
There's thrills around every turn in Hallandale Beach at Gulfstream Park with live thoroughbred racing every Wednesday through Sunday during our championship meet. It's peak season in South Florida and time for the Grade 1 Florida Derby on Saturday, March 30th. Join us in the Flamingo Room, Carousel Club, and 10 Palms Restaurant for an unforgettable afternoon of world-class racing and entertainment. For stake schedules, tickets, and more, head to GulfstreamPark.com.
Race fans, due to the inclement weather, Santa Anita Park will only be open this weekend for simulcast wagering. Admission and parking are free both days. Gates open today at 7:30 a.m., tomorrow at 10 a.m. Live racing will return on Thursday, April 4th, and of course, the big day next week is Saturday, April 6th, as we present the Grade 1 Santa Anita Derby. The day will be surrounded with great events like the Derby Day 5K, a craft beer festival, and so much more. You can find all the details at santanita.com. The immensely popular Easter egg hunt returns with over 30,000 Easter eggs for your kids to hunt throughout the day on Sunday, April 7th. And we would like to thank all our race fans for their continued support of the Coast to Coast Pick 5. To show our appreciation, Sunday, April 7th, the Coast to Coast Pick 5 will be seeded with $100,000. That's right. A free $100,000 is already in that pool. Plus, there will be mandatory payouts on all pools. So it will be a great weekend to come out here to Santa Anita Park, the great race place.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Orb is put to the whip by John Velasquez in third. Narvaez is fourth. They're into the stretch. It's My Lucky Day, and Elvis Trujillo have a furlong to run, and Orb comes up to him. It's My Lucky Day, and Orb has run by, and Orb and John Velasquez have won the Bessie Lou Stables Florida Derby. Orb did it going away from It's My Lucky Day. Merit Man was third, and Narvaez finished fourth in a final time of 1 minute 50.87 seconds.
Welcome back to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires. That was Larry Colmus with the call of the 2013 running of the Florida Derby, won by eventual Kentucky Derby hero Orb for trainer Shug McGaughey. Shug looking to get back to Churchill Downs on the first Saturday in May again this year with a very talented colt named Conquest Warrior for Cortland Farms, and that comes up in the Florida Derby at Gulfstream Park. Shug is with me now here on the show. Shug, good morning, my friend.
Good morning, Mike. How are you today?
Doing very well. As you were listening to the call of Orb winning the Florida Derby in 2013, what thoughts were going through your mind?
Well, it was an exciting day, and I knew we had to get past that to get to Louisville, and, Phipps and Janney were both here, and it was just an exciting day to see him progress the way he progressed.
He was a different type of horse than Conquest Warrior. He had more seasoning when he came in to the Florida Derby than Conquest Warrior does. I would never ask you to compare the two, but look back on Orb coming into the Florida Derby that year. What did you see from him that led you to think, okay, he was sitting on a big race?
Well, he was at pace and been training good. He'd won the Fountain of Youth. So, it was the next logical step forward. He'd done everything right all winter, and he had continued to do it right. So we came over here that day, we thought that if he ran his race, he should have a big chance, but it was still another step forward, and, we were pleased with this race.
Conquest Warrior, much different situation. He makes just his fourth career start in the Florida Derby. Highly regarded from the beginning. He was a $1 million Keeneland yearling. Tell me more about Conquest Warrior and what you're seeing from him that makes you think he could belong.
Well, it's a big step forward, as we all know, but all three of his races have been really, really good. The race at Aqueduct was a good starting point, and then for him to break his maiden the way he did here, and then to come back in the AL then going 1 mile and 8 the day before the Fountain of Youth was another big step forward. And, he's a very good-minded horse. He trains good, and doesn't seem anything bother him. He broke his maiden. He had all kinds of trouble leaving the gate, and kind of got far back. And then when he won here the other day, he kind of laid third and sort of was dominating his field at that point. So I think the biggest thing is just kind of, Jose can do what he wants to with him, and he's got a really good mind to be able to take this kind of a pressure situation to throw him in there against. You got the 2-year-old champion, you got the Holy Bull winner, and but we think he belongs, but he's going to have to show us he does today.
You mentioned his maiden win where he overcame trouble to get the victory that day, and then you bring him back as a 3-year-old. He wins that A Other Than. How important is it, Shug, to see a young horse that can overcome adversity in a race? Is that important going forward, looking ahead to the rest of their career?
Well, I think so in a way. It shows he can take it. He got bumped around. He had to eat dirt. All those kind of things that you do, you like to see him be able to overcome. And he was sure able to do that when he broke his maiden. And, he got a little more trouble over here around the 3/8 pole, too. So, I think that it'll be something that's, that's going to help him as we go along.
He also seems to be a very mature horse mentally, meaning a lot of young horses at this stage in the game will just show speed, and that's the only thing that they really know. He's been able to sit off the pace and relax. Are you seeing that from him in the mornings and in the afternoons?
Yeah, I think Jose can do whatever he wants to with him, just depending on how, the break and how it all sets up, in front of him. But, he's a great rider. He'll be able to read the race in the right way. So, and like you say, he's a very clear-minded horse, and, I don't worry about him getting involved in some kind of a crazy speed duel, or if he does drop too far out of it. I think that Jose can easily get him in position to where, if he's good enough, he's got a chance to win.
Shug, you've had an incredible relationship over the years with the Phippses and Stuart Janney, and now here's Cortland Farms with Conquest Warrior. Tell me a little bit about Cortland Farms and being associated with them.
Well, they're very easy people to get along with. They've got a really good farm manager in Ernie Redamoso, who I've known for kind of on and off. He's a Louisville guy, and he's very easy to work with on the farm. He gets a good bottom into them there. And, when he thinks they're ready to come, he sends them. And if, when he doesn't send them till they're ready to run, and Mr. Adams is kind of owner that stays out of the way and sort of leaves it up to Ernie and myself. And, when kind of most of the information goes through Ernie, and, but he's very easy, very, very, he and his wife are very interested, and they're very kind people to train for. I'm a lucky guy to have them.
Visiting with Hall of Fame trainer Shug McGaughey here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. Shug, the race before the Florida Derby, you're going to saddle Smokin' Tea. Johnny V will get the leg up again aboard Smokin' Tea. That's in the Appleton. Tell me a little bit more about him.
Well, he's a nice horse, every time you run him, he runs good. And his last race was a bit of a disappointment. As Johnny said, it just wasn't his day. He's trained good up at Payson Park. He had good work last Saturday on the turf up there to kind of sharpen him up. And, I think he'll go over there and make a good make a good presence for himself.
Are there certain attributes that good horses possess? I mean, we hear about, the look of eagles or whatever it might be. Are there certain things that good horses just show you, Shug, that make you think, all right, yeah, this horse has what it takes to be a good racehorse?
I think the biggest thing is the mental aspect of it. Obviously they've got to be sound, and they've got to have, have ability. But I think that to be able to get them to adjust in a mental state is one of the biggest things. They go over there and they're fretting what they're doing, or, if you don't, they want to be too eager in the early stages of the race and that kind of stuff, then, that hurts their ability to be able to perform at the best of their ability. And, that's one of the good things about Conquest Warrior. He's been pretty easy all the time that way.
I said earlier in the show, Shug, as I was kind of setting up the program, I was talking about 1994, 30 years ago, and the winner of the Arkansas Derby that year was Concern. The winner of the Florida Derby that year was Holy Bull, and that 3-year-old crop included Tabasco Cat and Gopher Gin and Dramatic Gold. The Philly side of things was loaded too. You won the Bonnie Mistakes that year with Inside Information, who would go on to be a Hall of Famer. But you also had 2 Altazano and Sardula and Lakeway. That 3-year-old crop on both sides was loaded that year, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was a pretty good bunch. I had 2 pretty good ones in Inside Information, Heavenly Prize myself. So,
yeah,
it was, it took the Heavenly Prize a little while to get together. But she showed her real ability when she won the Alabama that year. So, it was a very good bunch.
I loved Inside Information. Everything about her was brilliant. Heavenly Prize was fantastic too, but Inside Information was brilliant pretty much right from the start, wasn't she?
Yeah, she won her first start. They both won their first start on the same day. And, but the one thing she was over Heavenly Prize, she was fast. And Heavenly Prize didn't have as much speed. Pat Day, he could get her to of course, she was in the race and stuff to where, she'd finished strong. But she was a kind of filly, was a true route filly. And, then when she turned full, the long races, especially at Saratoga, she was especially effective.
Yeah, it's incredible to me, Shug, and I said this earlier too, that every time I welcome you to the show and I mention a horse's name, you recall almost every step that horse ever took. It's amazing.
Well, I don't know about that. Some of the better ones, it's not that hard to remember, but to forget. But I mean, like with Inside Information, it was a special year for her, and she was sure fun to be around, and then to have her run the way she ran in the Breeders' Cup was a kind of cherry on top of the cake. So it all worked out really well.
No, there's no doubt about it. A lot of races have turned out pretty well for Hall of Famer Shug McGaughey. Shug, listen, I know you're busy. I'll let you go. Good luck later today in the Florida Derby, and we'll be watching.
All right, Mike. Thanks a lot.
All right, Shug McGaughey here on HRRN. Talented horse, Conquest Warrior. There's no denying that. Shug feels like he belongs. That's good enough for me. But he also said he needs to step up. When you look at the Holy Bull winner in there with Hades, and you look at Fierceness, the 2-year-old champion, he's going to have to step up. He's going to have to continue to move forward. But it sounds to me like Shug feels like, okay, it's worth a shot. He's shown us enough at this point where we can take a shot. Yeah, and Heavenly Prize, part of that 3-year-old filly Division II in 1994. Inside Information, brilliant. Tu Altezano, Sardula, Lakeway. Boy, those are some names. And that's just on the filly side. I mean, the male side was loaded that year, too. We'll see if Shug can pull it off. It should be a great race today in the Florida Derby. Of course, you also have the Arkansas Derby at Oaklawn Park. And I asked you in the poll question today, which of those two races will have the biggest impact, most significant impact on the 3-year-old division later this year, throughout the rest of the year? So break out the crystal ball, take a look and say, okay, this field looks like a group of horses that can continue to develop and have an impact as we move throughout the rest of 2024. Post time for the Florida Derby, 6:42 Eastern, 5:42 Central, and, of course, 3:42 out on the West Coast, which, by the way, no racing at Santa Anita this weekend because of the inclement weather, the rain that is hitting Southern California. There will be no racing at Santa Anita, so keep that in mind as you're getting ready to handicap and play all the races. All right, coming up next, we're going to turn our attention to Dubai, and you'll hear from several of the connections with the horses that are getting ready to compete later today. Of course, that program is already started, but I'm going to bring you some sound bites from folks who are going to be participating in races after this show concludes at 11 a.m. Eastern. So you'll still have time to tweak your wagers or to make your wagers based on what you hear from the connections coming up in the next segment. That's all ahead right after your Legends of the Turf and this short commercial break.
It was a hot, sticky day in mid-May at Pimlico, the suburban Baltimore thoroughbred plant, and a huge crowd was on hand to take in the 81st renewal of the Run for the Black-Eyed Susans, the Preakness. It was 1957, and then Vice President Richard Milhouse Nixon was but one of the vast throng in attendance. Mrs. Nixon, Pat, was to present the trophy, the Woodlawn Vase, to the winning connections. There was a field of 7 3-year-olds going postward to contest the event, run over a distance of 1 3/16 miles. It figured to be a battle between 3 main contestants: Iron Liege, who'd won that year's edition of the Derby a couple of weeks earlier in the Spangles of Calumet Farm; Bold Ruler, who'd gone postward in the Derby as the 6-5 favorite but had run poorly; and Federal Hill, a speed horse who figured to do well on Pimlico's fast track with the sharp returns and short run to the wire. Also in the field were Inswept, who had won the Spalding Low Jenkins and the Chesapeake, both at Laurel; Promised Land, who had won the Governor's Gold Cup at Bowie, and run second to Mr. Jibe in the Gotham, but had finished third to both Bull Ruler and Gallant Man in the Wood Memorial at Jamaica. Hiss was also in the field but appeared overmatched, although he had won 3 straight allowance races. And Inside Track, who had never faced stakes horses and had been claimed for $7,500 and $12,500. One of the critical factors in the race was the post positions, and the race may very well have been won right at the break from the gate, as it turned out. The inside threesome, Inswept, Hiss, and Promised Land were notoriously slow breakers. Iron Liege had the 4-hole, Bold Ruler was 5, Inside Track at post 6, and the pure speed in the race, Federal Hill, on the extreme outside. Bold Ruler was a noted fast breaker, and Federal Hill would have to cross over on the entire field to get to the front, if indeed he could. At post time, Iron Liege was 6-5, Bold Ruler 7-5, Federal Hill 7-1. Eddie Arcaro was aboard Bold Ruler, and when the latch was dropped, he shot Bold Ruler to the front, and as expected, Federal Hill was right there with him. Federal Hill had a half length on Bold Ruler as they went to the clubhouse turn, but Arcaro would not let Federal Hill by to gain a clear lead. That forced Federal Hill to lose precious ground and gave Arcaro and Bold Ruler the fence, so to speak, to save real estate. They ran together on around the turn and onto the backside. Midway down the backstretch, Federal Hill gave up the chase, and it was Iron Liege under Bill Hartack laying third, just off the early fractions, waiting to make one big move. As they went to the far turn, Hartack dropped his mount down a notch and began to move on Iron Liege, but Arcaro would have none of that and cranked Bold Ruler up a notch to continue to hold the length and a half lead. Iron Liege tried again at the top of the straight, but Bold Ruler turned back that challenge as well. Arcaro went to the whip down Pimlico's short stretch and drove Bold Ruler to the wire, a 2-length winner. After the race, Arcaro said he had pretty much given Bold Ruler his head, as opposed to keeping him wrapped up as he had done in the early part of the Derby. Hartack offered no excuses for Iron Liege's effort. Sonny Jim Fitzsimmons, the trainer of Bold Ruler, had used a cunning little trick on Bold Ruler. He had put a piece of string on the bit of Bold Ruler to ease the pressure on his cheek. In actuality, the race had been decided right at the start, for all practical purposes, when Bold Ruler and Federal Hill rocketed from the gate in front of Iron Liege. It all happened on a hot, sticky Saturday afternoon in mid-May at Pimlico, in the 81st Preakness, when Bold Ruler gained sweet revenge for that year's Derby loss.
You're listening to HRRN, horse racing's voice.
Race the TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
When it's time to paint the fences and barns, think Farm Paint. At Farm Paint, you get the industry's best coatings and paints factory direct at low, low prices. Farm Paint is your source for quality paints, roof coatings, dustless arena footings, and more. You can purchase online or drop into a Farm Paint store near you with locations in Heart of Bluegrass Country at 700 Phillips Lane in Lexington, Kentucky, Columbus, Ohio, and Sandusky, Ohio. Buy factory direct and save at farmpaint.com. That's farmpaint.com.
It's time now to shine the spotlight on the Darley Taking the Reins Performer of the Week.
And First Mission coming here to Hot Springs, and he'll be going to the winner's circle. First Mission and a dominant win in the Essex Handicap.
First Mission, the son of Darley Stallion Street Sense, rolled to victory in the Grade 3 Essex by a widening 5 lengths while posting a 100 buyer. He could be his sire's latest older horse hero, following in the hoof prints of Maxfield, Speaker's Corner, and McKinsey. That dominant win in the Essex makes First Mission your Darley Taking the Reins Performer of the Week. Darley Stallion Street Sense. His 12 Grade 1 winners include 3 Stallion sons standing in Kentucky: Maxfield, Speaker's Corner, and McKinsey. Maxfield and Speaker's Corner stand alongside their sire at John Abel Farm. Learn more about Street Sense and all the Darley Stallions by visiting darleyamerica.com.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, Presented by TwinSpires.
Sibelius cuts the corner in fourth, and they're into the stretch. It's Hopkins and Gunite to the outside. The American horses 1-2. These two come into the final furlong together. Sound money between those two. Running at third, Sibelius trying to run up the rail. Switzerland is putting in his run on the outside. It is Hopkins in front. On the outside comes Gunite. Here comes Switzerland. Sibelius down toward the rail. They're coming down to the finish, and it is very close. Oh, was it Switzerland or Sibelius? Did Switzerland do it again? Did Sibelius get there? They were noses apart on the wire.
Yes, they were noses apart, but the nose in front went to Sibelius for trainer Jerry O'Dwyer. Larry Colmus had the call. That was last year's Dubai Golden Shaheen, set to come up in just a little while at Meydan. Speaking of announcers, Larry Colmus, fantastic, as good as it gets. But this year, at just 28 years old, Pat Comerford, who is an Australian announcer, is going to be calling the Dubai World Cup. He's calling that program. He will become the youngest announcer in the history of the event to call the race. So good luck to Pat in Dubai later this afternoon. I mentioned Jerry O'Dwyer. He is back in Dubai with Sibelius as defending champion in the Golden Shaheen. Earlier this week, Jerry took time to meet with the media. Here's what he had to say about Sibelius.
Well, a warm welcome back then to Meydan. Jerry O'Dwyer joins us once again. He was here in the build-up to last year's Dubai World Cup. He was here on Dubai World Cup night after winning with Sibelius in the Golden Shaheen. He was back again. Jerry, great to see you. How excited and how pleased are you to be back here in Dubai?
Thanks, Martin. Very pleased and excited to be back. You know, obviously Dubai was very good to us last year with getting the victory. And it's just great to be invited back and, you know, they take great care of you here. Track's always in fabulous condition. Facilities are second to none. And the people take good care of you.
Well, you've got the Sibelius hat on. Just tell us how the horse has been and how pleased you've been with this preparation this time around.
Horse has been very well. Preparation has gone very similar to last year. You know, maybe visually, I think he's probably a little bit more impressive in his last prep race this year. A couple of horses that finished behind him in his prep race have come back and won stakes and allowance races. So it's always very nice to get a little form boost going into a big race like this.
It was a new experience for you last year, coming out here with a runner in Dubai. Have you done anything different this time around? Have you changed anything, or have you got a winning formula that you've left in place?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, we haven't really changed anything. I mean, you know, we have to tailor the times of his breezes. We have 7 weeks in between his last race to Dubai this year, whereas last year we only had 6. So we just tailor little things timing-wise. But he's a very easy horse. He likes to be fresh. He's pretty clear-winded. You know, so we just, once we get him fit, it's kind of just maintenance then after that.
And just give us your reflections looking back to last year. I mean, he drew perfectly well. The race went ideal as well. But how do you reflect on 12 months ago?
I mean, like everything went so smoothly. I thought the only hiccup I had is when we got drawn 1 at the post draw. I was like, ideally, I would like to be into the middle.
Okay.
You know, but he overcame so much. Not used to seeing him being that far out of his ground early on in races as he was in Dubai here last year. But it just gave us a renewed confidence that he's not one-dimensional, that he doesn't have to be on the speed, that he can do it both ways, that he can come from behind and on the lead. Mm-hmm. So, look, last year was just an unreal experience, just to come over and take on some of the best sprinters in the world, and him to pull it out of the bag like that and get somebody like Ryan Moore who wants to ride him, and as everybody could see, give him a phenomenal ride.
And what difference, if any, did coming across and winning such a big race make to you and your operation?
It you know, give us a very good boost, you know, especially for morale and our people in the yard that work for us, but also owners. It helped us. You know, we still don't have a lot of horses, but we definitely have more high-profile owners in the barn. So that gives you a chance of getting better quality horses, because we don't, you know, spend a lot of money at the sales, but at least if you get some good owner breeders, you have a chance of getting a well-bred horse that could turn out to be good for you.
And Jerry, we were just chatting a few minutes ago. He won the Pelican as his lead-in race. You've touched on how the forms worked out, but I think visually he was more impressive in the prep race this time around than 12 months ago.
Yeah, visually, yes, he was. You know, 12 months ago, he was drawn inside and he went head-to-head, duelled on the speed the whole way and put that horse away, that duelled with him and won. But this year, he set like 4 wide, off the speed. He did cover a fair amount of ground. But Junior Alvarado, who's done a wonderful job with him and rides him in all these races in the USA, he said to me he was very confident the whole time going around there on him. It was just a matter of pushing the button on him and going. So it was nice to get that feedback from Junior, to express his confidence in the horse.
And Junior rides him back there. Ryan Moore rode last year. Was he keen to get back on board again this time around?
He was. Look, Junior's agent did, ask me to throw his hat in the ring for riding him out here. But I told him before the Pelican that, if he was coming back to Dubai, that Ryan Moore would have first call, which I felt was only fair. Junior couldn't come out last year. Ryan took over the mount, and it's very hard to, break a winning combination like that.
And just for anyone who's not familiar with your story as well, but just tell us a bit about yourself. You were obviously an Irishman who rode in England, now trains in America. You've been on quite a journey.
I have. Racing's been very good to me. It's as we were talking off air that racing has taken me all over the world. Got to see places and experience things that I never would have, only for racing. So I'm very grateful for that. So it's it's all about the horses.
Okay, well, we'll open it up to any questions for Jerry from the floor. We've got a microphone that we can pass around if there are.
Hi there, Bob Kiekeffer with Blood Horse. Could you elaborate just a little bit on the role American racing plays and maybe should play in international competition? It seems we've been doing more, but could do a lot more.
Yeah, I believe Americans were probably not as willing to travel as we could be because the money and the races are plentiful for the top level horses back in America. And I think that plays a role in staying home, why travel halfway around the world when there's a race like maybe 4 hours up the road. But I think the Dubai race with so much money on offer, what we're running for $2 million, it's like there's not many races you get back in America for that. So look, we're willing to travel. The owners love it. As one owner of mine told us, we're in the entertainment industry. So this is highly entertaining, to be able to travel halfway around the world with a live shot.
Jerry, many thanks for coming in this morning. Great to see you back here, and we wish you the best of luck on Saturday. Hopefully we'll see you again on Saturday evening.
Hopefully. Thanks very much.
Jerry.
Appreciate it all.
All right, Jerry O'Dwyer talking about Sibelius, and I loved his comments there at the end, as one owner told him, we're in the entertainment industry, so not only is it about the money and about the prestige of coming back to defend your title in the Golden Shaheen, but it's about giving the people what they want, right? It's great to see a horse like Sibelius come back there from the States and try to defend that title. And I loved his schedule, too. It's very similar. He said he's coming into the race almost the same way he was last year, but coming in off of a win in the Pelican Stakes at Tampa Bay Downs. And now here he is, a chance to win the Golden Shaheen for a second consecutive year. So good luck to Sibelius and to Jerry O'Dwyer later today. Senor Buscador got that signature win in the Saudi Cup. You heard from his trainer, Todd Fincher, here on the Equine Forum. And on my Trainer Talk program, I visited with Todd for a full hour on that Trainer Talk show. You can go back to the website and listen to that conversation. Also heard from his jockey, Junior Alvarado, who joined me here on the Equine Forum a few weeks ago. Well, Senor Buscador's owner, Joey Peacock, is also really excited to be in Dubai following that big win in the Saudi Cup. Here's what he had to say earlier this week.
This is our first trip here. Honestly, never really expected to have this opportunity, but we got the invitation and the horse is doing great. He's a homebred for us. My father and I, that's the last horse that we bred together. And yeah, it's very, very special. We own his mama and we own all of his brothers and sisters. So yeah, it's been a big deal for our family for sure. Well, he came out of Saudi Cup in great order. Oscar reports that he's doing everything perfect, so we're just happy. Couldn't be going any better right now. He's taken us all over the U.S. In races, and then happy to get the opportunity to come over here in the Middle East and try these. Getting the chance to run on the world stage is a big deal, and we don't take that lightly. We're very appreciative of the opportunity. Ever since his very first race as a 2-year-old, he goes straight to the back of the pack and then gets comfortable, and when he decides to run, he starts running, and it's just a matter of how many can we catch. But when he gets there, it's exciting for sure. But he's run two-turn races most of his career. We're not really concerned about that. The distances we think will be a good distance for him. He was closing fast in his last race. This is a little bit farther, so we'll have to see what happens on race day, obviously, but we like our chances.
That's it. When you have a horse like Senor Buscador who comes from far back, you're always at the mercy of the pace in front of you, and you're always at the mercy of that horse's late kick. Is he going to have enough to get up? Did the jockey time the move correctly? All of those types of things. But it certainly makes it exciting. And one thing about Senor Buscador is he always comes running at the end. So we know he'll be running through the stretch. Will it be enough to run past everybody and get a second signature victory in a row? We're going to find out. Post time, by the way, for the Dubai World Cup is 8:35 local time in Dubai, which makes that about 12:35 Eastern time, and 9:35 for those of you tuning into the show out on the West Coast. So keep that in mind as we get ready for the race. It's not just Senor Buscador. That is a stellar field, and one of the other American entrants is Krupe, owned by Mike Rapoli. Mike is also going to be in Florida. Well, not also. He's going to be in Florida, so that means that Pat Cummings is in Dubai. Pat working with Mike and his National Thoroughbred Alliance. Pat Cummings is over there with Krupe. Here's what he had to say about their contender.
It was a bit of a slow developing type, right? I think it took maybe 7 or 8 races before he broke his maiden, but he was just putting it all together, right? A son of Curlin, who may be a bit late developing, and put a nice string together at the end of the year in New York. And they took a chance in the Pegasus with him, and really only 2 horses closed into the pace that day, and one was Senor Buscador, and he really just got the jump on Krupe. And Krupe kind of came closing in behind him. Now that was over 1,800. And here, we saw what Senor Buscador did last time, also when he got a setup over 1,800. So he was right there at Gulfstream in the Pegasus, but now over 2,000. With this type of track, I think he could be in for a shot. You have to keep an eye on the blue and orange silks coming late because I think he could be in for a slice. J.J. Krupe was a huge supporter of Mike's and really was instrumental in one of Mike's first best horses, which was Uncle Mo. And working with him and pre-training him and getting him to the races. And I think Mike wanted to, JJ passed away a couple years ago, and Mike wanted to name a really good one for him. And so it would be very special for Mike if Krupe kind of got his first grade 1 at this level with Krupe for him.
Certainly would be special. It's a great story there, and we'll see if Krupe can find a way to do it, named in honor of J.J. Krupe, who passed away at the age of 79 a couple of years ago. And, boy, this would be a special win for Mike Rapoli, for the entire team, and for Todd Pletcher and his team, too. We'll see how that plays out this afternoon. Another horse that you're likely to hear from in today's Dubai World Cup is one of the Japanese entrants, that is Dermis Sotogake, a name that many Americans are familiar with after his forays into the United States. His jockey Christophe Lemaire got a chance to talk about him with the media earlier this week.
He ran very well on that day. He was drawn outside. Couldn't find the speed to be on top of the field. But from behind, he came through the horses, and at the bend he was reacting very well. Unfortunately, he had a long break since the Breeders' Cup Classic, and because of the high pace, at the end he just stayed on and couldn't fight for the winning rank. But he ran really, really good, and for sure for the Dubai World Cup he will be at his top. I think he will step up in condition. He had that run 1.5 months ago in Saudi. He won on that track last year, the UAE Derby. Means he likes the track, and Sotogake at his top can perform very, very well. He's quite quick out of the gates, but with 4 corners, with two bends, yeah, he has time to find his rhythm, and he feels a little bit more confident than with one bend like a Saudi racetrack. In the Saudi Cup, he fought very well. He had a bit of a lack of condition because his long layoff. That was not the case for Ujba Tesoro. We had a run at the end of December, if I remember. So yeah, I definitely think that Sotogake has the potential to compete and to chase the victory.
Christophe Lemaire, he sounds confident if you're listening and reading between the lines. I think he feels like he's in a good position with Dermot Sotogake. He talked about the fact that he was coming off of a long layoff coming into the Saudi Cup. Maybe that caught up with him, but he still felt like he ran a good race. He wasn't ever quick enough in that race to get to the front. He's hoping for a better break today and for more speed from Dermot Sotogake to put him into a position where he can contend all the way through the stretch. But it sounds to me, listening to his tone, listening to the way he answered some of the questions, that Christophe Lemaire feels like Dermot Sotogake could be sitting on a big race later today, maybe a horse to keep an eye on in there. But there are so many good horses. It's obviously fantastic race. Again, post time, right around 8:35 local time in Dubai, which makes it 12:35 Eastern here in the U.S. When I come back, it's time for this week's edition of Calling All Three-Year-Olds, presented by Spendthrift with our man Bobby Newman. You'll hear our Kentucky bred update, and I'll get you ready for hour number 2. This is the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network.
The Claiming Crown is returning to Churchill Downs Saturday, November 16th. Make plans to be part of the Claiming Horse version of the Breeders' Cup, showcasing 8 Claiming Crown races offering a minimum of $100,000. Each race will also offer a Kentucky Thoroughbred Development Fund purse supplement for registered Kentucky breds.
An invaluable goes all the way up top to win it a length and a half.
The 2024 Claiming Crown, live from Churchill Downs, Saturday, November 16th. Learn more at claimingcrown.com.
Joe Buck and John Smoltz welcoming you back to the City Center Convenience Mart. Well, John, the stage is set for the final transaction.
That's right, Joe. Heather's moment has arrived, and you just hope all that training pays off.
Heather lays down her purchase, but Randy rings it up as slowly as he can.
He is a wily veteran.
It gives Heather's eyes the chance to wander.
Uh-oh.
Yep, she's looking at the cigarettes.
There's nothing good back there. Quit now, and in 5 years, your odds of getting certain cancers drop 50%.
Meanwhile, Randy's stone-faced. He's giving nothing away. He just stands there, wetting his cashier's finger on that sponge.
Heather toes the rubber.
Here we go. Heather's arm is in motion. But instead of pointing at the back wall, she just grabs the gum off the counter.
That's a slick move.
Heather back. She is out of there. Even Randy tips his cap to Heather. Stand Up to Cancer and Rally wants you to reduce your risk for cancer.
Go to takeahealthystand.org.
I'm William Shatner. I've been around a long time, but I'm truly humbled when I see the real battles our brave, paralyzed veterans have faced defending our freedom. And when they come home,
I had just come home from serving over in Germany. Next thing I know, it was 3 weeks later. I was paralyzed.
While parachuting with my platoon, my parachute didn't open, and I broke my neck. It left me paralyzed for the rest of my life.
I was on a routine patrol, and we were in the desert of Kuwait, and the vehicle flipped and landed on top of me, which left me paralyzed from the waist down.
okay, folks, this is heroism. That's why I'm proud to support Paralyzed Veterans of America, because they've kept their promise to never leave a fallen soldier behind. A roof over their heads, accessible homes, cars, jobs, benefits.
PVA has brought me back to life.
Show them their sacrifice hasn't been in vain. Go to PVA.org to learn how you can make a difference.
Thursday evenings, 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern, is the Brisnet.com call-in show. It's your chance to call in and let the Horse Racing Radio Nation know what's on your mind. Call us at 888-966-HRRN. That's 888-966-4776. And discuss the topics you choose in the world of thoroughbred racing. The Brisnet.com call-in show. Sirius 162, XM 207, and streaming live at horseracingradio.net.
They're all in line. And they're off.
Spendthrift Farm presents Calling All Three-Year-Olds with Bobby Newman.
The Grade 2 Louisiana Derby was the marquee event last weekend. Catching Freedom and Honor Marie ran by all others before finishing 1-2 in the Fairgrounds feature, earning 150 Kentucky Derby points respectively. At Turfway, the Grade 3 Jeff Ruby also saw closers dominate. Endlessly closed from mid-pack to win easily, while West Saratoga just barely won a tight-placed photo. The winner will likely skip the Derby, opting for the American turf instead. The runner-up is running for the Roses. Near Tokyo, T.O. Password gamely won the Fukuru Stakes and is the point leader on Japan's road to Kentucky. His connections just accepted the invitation a few days ago and will make the trip to Churchill Downs. 3 big ones on the U.S. road to the Kentucky Derby today. At Gulfstream, 2-year-old champ Fierceness tries to make amends for his Holy Bull defeat in the Grade 1 Florida Derby. He'll have to overcome a bad post and beat Hades, who upset the champ when they squared off last time. At Oaklawn, the Grade 1 Arkansas Derby is in the spotlight. Rebel champ Timberlake, Southwest winner Mystic Dan, and West Coast invader Muth headline the field of 10. Muth, of course, isn't eligible for Kentucky Derby points since he's trained by Bob Baffert. Finally, in Dubai, the UAE Derby is this morning. Top Japanese runner Forever Young needs a win or place finish to earn a spot in this year's Kentucky Derby. I'll be back with this week's top 5 list right after this word from Spendthrift.
Cyberknife was a very talented horse from day one. Fast horse, able to carry it around 2 turns. Looks a tremendous amount like Gunrunner, same ability and talent. Holds the track record in the Haskell. He won it in impressive fashion, beating a very good group of horses.
His name is Cyberknife!
Excited about him passing on his durability, his soundness, and his talent. He could definitely be a breed-shaping stallion.
Multiple Grade 1 winner Cyberknife, standing at Spendthrift.
This week's top 5 list of Derby contenders looks like this. Number 5, Mystic Dan, the Southwest champ, is running in the Arkansas Derby today. Number 4, Fierceness, 2-year-old champ, was dull in the Holy Bull. Let's see if he makes amends in the Florida Derby this afternoon. Number 3, Timberlake, nice win in the Rebel off the layoff. There's no reason he can't continue to improve. Number 2, Forever Young, the Japan-paced runner, is undefeated and won the Saudi Derby on pure guts, planning for the UAE Derby, then on to Kentucky. And number 1, Sierra Leone, won the Risen Star despite possibly not liking the wet track. He's aiming for the Bluegrass at Keeneland on April 6th. That's your Calling All 3-Year-Old segment presented by Spendthrift, the Breeders' Farm.
Now, the Kentucky Derby will be here before we know it, the first Saturday in May, fast approaching. And when you speak of Kentucky, you speak about the purse money and the incentives and all those types of things that come along with racing and breeding in the Bluegrass State. And that leads us to this week's Kentucky Bred Update. And remember, listen, you should be seeing green in the Bluegrass. You say, what? What are you talking about, Barron? Well, how about this? Combined purse money paid out in 2023 hit another all-time high of more than $196 million, following $165 million in 2022. Kentucky's average purse per race of $108,409 outpaces all other leading racing jurisdictions, including New York, Arkansas, Florida, and California. And of the 14 tracks that averaged more than $500,000 in daily purses in 2023, 4 of them, Kentucky Downs, Churchill Downs, Keeneland, and Ellis, are in Kentucky. In addition, over $200 million has been distributed to Kentucky breeders since 2006, and with purse money soaring, the KBIF contributing $16.2 million to eligible breeders, the fullest fields in the country, with an average field size of 8.8, which is higher than New York, Florida, and California, and quality racing year-round at the 5 racetracks. There is no better time to race and breed in the Bluegrass. Invest in success. Race and breed in Kentucky. Breed them, raise them, race them. We all win. For more information, visit KentuckyBreds.com. Yeah, the money in Kentucky now, racing, breeding, is just off the charts good. And coming up in the second hour of the program, you're going to hear this week's edition of Kentucky Bred, which is a segment we've been bringing your way for the past 5 or 6 or 7 weeks now. And this week I had the chance to visit with trainer Buff Bradley, former trainer Buff Bradley, who is now working on the sales team at Keeneland. He's a native of Frankfort, Kentucky, and, of course, associated with horses like Groupie Doll and Brass Hat, but he is Kentucky through and through. And I think you're really going to enjoy that conversation and Buff's insight into what it means to race and to breed and to sell and to buy horses in the Bluegrass State. So stay tuned for that coming up right around 9:20 Eastern Time. Hour 2 begins with Dr. Stuart Brown joining me from Keeneland as we get ready for the opening of the Keeneland meet next weekend. Dr. Brown will talk about some of the safety initiatives and some of the things that they have been working on tirelessly behind the scenes over the past couple of months. We'll get a chance to talk to him about that. Flavien Prat set to join me in hour number 2 as well, right around 9:40 Eastern. And then 10 o'clock Eastern, hour 3 begins with the TwinSpires Triple Play. Vance Hanson will give you 3 races to keep an eye on later today. Kurt Becker, Stroll Through Racing History at 10:20. And at 10:30, I Ask, They Answer with Dale Romans and Tim Wilkin. Plenty of things to get to. Hour 2 begins next after this 10-second pause for station identification. This is the Horse Racing Radio Network, where racing comes to talk.
This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires.
Welcome back, hour 2 of 3 on this Saturday morning. Mike Penna, Baron of the Backstretch, happy to have you along for the ride up until 11 a.m. Eastern. Big day, the Florida Derby, the Arkansas Derby, Dubai World Cup Day, all kinds of action going on around the country and around the world on this Saturday afternoon. Dr. Stuart Brown set to join me momentarily to talk about some of the safety initiatives he and the team at Keeneland have been working on over the past several months. We'll do that here in just a moment, but I want to remind you, if you missed any portion of the first hour of the program, those sound bites and conversations that took place regarding the Dubai World Cup program that I brought your way, and Shug McGaughey talking about Conquest Warrior in today's Florida Derby, Smoking Tea, who he'll saddle in the Appleton. All you have to do is head back to the website, horseracingradio.net, and you can check out the podcast whenever you get a few minutes. Also, too, weigh in on today's poll question. You can go to X, formerly Twitter, to cast your vote there, and you can go to Horse Racing Radio Network on Facebook and let me know your thoughts on the poll question I posed in the first hour of the program. And I think it's an interesting one. Which Derby prep will ultimately have the most significant impact on the 3-year-old division this year? Will it be the Florida Derby? Will it be the Arkansas Derby? And I think if you're just looking at it on paper, you might be more inclined to say, well, no, that's easy, Baron. It's the Florida Derby. You have the 2-year-old champion, Fierceness, in there. You have Hades, who defeated the 2-year-old champion last time out. Conquest Warrior, we know that he has plenty of talent. You heard from Shug McGaughey in the first hour of the program. So it might be easy to lean that direction. But I do think when you look at the Arkansas Derby, and we're talking about not the impact on the division today or after those races today, but I'm asking you to look ahead to the future for the rest of 2024, and which of those 2 races will have the bigger impact on this 3-year-old division throughout the rest of the year. There are a lot of big races, not just in the Triple Crown, but after the Triple Crown. And I think Timberlake, who is 9-5 on the morning line for the red-hot Brad Cox and Flavien Prat team, I think Timberlake is legit. He's run some good numbers. I tell you all the time, I'm a fan of the late pace numbers and the Brisnet past performances. His late pace numbers are excellent, and they continue to be excellent all the way through. Even in his Breeders' Cup Juvenile defeat to Fierceness at the end of his 2-year-old campaign, his numbers were rock solid. He ran, according to the numbers, he ran a really good race. He proved that race was no fluke when he came back and dominated the competition in the Rebel. Now, he has to take the next step today and continue to improve. We'll see if he can do it. Interestingly, he is not the favorite in that race today. Muth is 8-5 on the morning line for Bob Baffert. Haven't seen Muth since early January when he rolled to victory in the San Vicente. He also comes out of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile where he was second behind Fierceness that afternoon. And when Nisos now sidelined, maybe Muth is the horse to grab the baton and run with it for the Baffert barn. Of course, he won't be able to make his way to Louisville, but he can make his way to Baltimore and be a factor there if he continues to show the same type of ability and talent that he showed at 2 and he showed early on in his 3-year-old season in the San Vicente. So that's a pretty good showdown. How about Mystic Dan? What do you think of him? Again, talking about the poll question and which race, the Florida Derby or Arkansas Derby, has horses that will have a bigger impact on the division throughout the rest of the year. Mystic Dan, did he freak in the mud in the Southwest last time out? Or has he finally figured it out? I, like most people, think he's a pretty good horse. I don't know if he's as good as what we saw in the Southwest. I do think the mud moved him up that afternoon. He's got to show us again. He's got to prove that he can do that again. But if he does, and what about the horses that are kind of under the radar in there? What about Liberal Arts? Graded Stakes winner, won the Grade 3 Street Sense at Churchill Downs over a sloppy racetrack in October, and then came back and finished third behind Mystic Dan in the Southwest. Is Liberal Arts a horse that can continue to develop? He's by Arrowgate. That's good. Is he a horse that can continue to develop and grow into something special and have an impact in this division throughout the rest of the year? So that's what, when you look at the poll question, that's what you have to do. You really have to take your crystal ball out and look into the future and say, which race, the Florida Derby or the Arkansas Derby, has horses in it that will be more impactful in this division, have a more significant impact on the division going forward? I don't think it's cut and dry. I think the knee-jerk reaction by most people is going to say Florida Derby. But I think when you really dive into the Arkansas Derby and you look at Muth and Timberlake and maybe even Mystic Dan, if you want to throw him in there, although I think he's still got a ways to go to be counted among the same, counted in the same level as Muth and Timberlake. But maybe that's the race that has the bigger impact going forward. We'll see. We're going to see a good race next weekend at Keeneland with the Bluegrass Stakes. Of course, you have the Wood Memorial, Santa Anita Derby, all part of a stellar Saturday. Dr. Stuart Brown is with me now. He and his team have been working very, very hard behind the scenes to make sure that all of the horses stay safe when we get to that Keeneland meet, and he's with me now here on HRN. Doctor, appreciate the visit, my friend.
Hey, good morning, Mike. Thanks for having me.
Let's start with those safety initiatives. I've been talking about it throughout the show. I've been plugging this conversation we were going to have here this morning. So tell me what's new and what things you've been working on.
Well, I think, as a part of, this approach to equine safety, I think the collaborative opportunities we certainly have had within this jurisdiction, especially here in Kentucky, to sort of activate a lot of the things that we do, that we integrate into the approach we have here at Keeneland, has been really, really significant. And so, it kind of spans a whole lot of things that we've tried to sort of bring and sort of leverage as we get into the race meet. But it's the stuff that we do every morning here, in terms of the things we do that sort of advocate for the interest of the equine racing athlete. And so those things kind of, go across things like the vet cam system that we have put in to sort of monitor AM training, and then we can kind of use interventionally during the race meet as well. That helps us kind of in monitoring. It sort of puts us in really key positions throughout the racetrack, as well as in the barn area, so that we're kind of in the environment where the horse lives. Because every place, that we can touch a horse is a place that we want to be found in terms of advocating for their best safety. And then, through the advent of a lot of the work that's been done with the wearable technologies has been something that we sought to sort of partner with the Stride Safe group, along with what Churchill Downs has done to sort of bring that kind of ability to sort of look at objective data that's kind of evaluating horses that are competing during our race meets. What's been really interesting about that effort that's sort of gone on in terms of working across the jurisdiction is that we've been able to sort of work with our other racing association partners here to continue to monitor the populations that we have here and sort of kind of at least kind of develop at least a bit of a footprint for how those horses are doing, and then be in a position to work with the horsemen and their attending veterinarians who are truly, the custodians of working with those horses on a daily basis to sort of be another resource that kind of helps them to sort of be in a seek to understand position for everything that we kind of see on a monitoring basis.
I think most fans, Doc, will hear terms like Stride Safe, and they'll hear you mention it on the show. They'll read it in print, and they're not really 100% sure what that entails, what goes into it, what the ultimate goal of Stride Safe is. So explain that a little bit more, please.
Yeah, I think, what we're kind of sort of recognizing, I think that we're seeing be brought to us in terms of the equine discipline is much like what a lot of your listeners would probably relate to seeing, in the types of things that go on relative to, professional sports, whether they be the National Football League, Major League Baseball, the NBA, data analytics that, is with the wearable technologies, the sensor technologies that people have. And so in the case of the horse, there are these accelerometer sensors that are on the horse that sort of take measurements on how the horse moves in 9 different planes, and they take them over 3,000 to 4,000 readings per second. So as the horse is in locomotion, as in initiating a gait, you're being able to sort of analyze how that individual horse is doing and also compare it how it's doing relative to a population of horses. So it's truly objective data that you're accumulating on the horse as they're in exercise so that, for people like me, somebody who's very much a practitioner at heart, when you're out watching horses and when you're doing really good examinations on horses and you're monitoring, their movements, you're oftentimes talking about looking at the quality of their movements. You want to see the evenness and the freedom of movement that you're looking for. And those a lot of times could be considered as our subjective analysis of the horse and how we see the horse preparing itself, in terms of athletic competition. With this kind of data, you're taking that objective data that you're accumulating with these sensors and being able to marry that up with the observations that we make and then feel more confident about that horse being in a position to compete, in terms of a racing situation.
How much has that helped you and the team to be able to, I'll use the word predict, I don't even know if that's the right word, but to prevent some catastrophic injuries that could occur? Are you able to look at that data and say, boy, something's just not right here, we need to dive deeper into this horse's physical or whatever it might be?
So I think when you sort of consider all the things that we've sort of done, I think what's really kind of reassuring, and I think is, from a complementary basis that we're finding in so many places from an advocacy perspective on the equine racing athlete, lots and lots of efforts that are being centered around the four-legged mane and a tail focus that we have about what can we do to understand better about how that horse is doing? The overt type lamenesses that occur that we want to be ahead of the curve on trying to do. And so anything we can do to detect those things, to reinforce, the confidence we have about our evaluations on those horses is really key, because we also have the ability to sort of leverage some of the advancements we have in diagnostic imaging, certainly like PET scan or MRI or CAT scan, in order to sort of, once we detect something, once we recognize something that could be, a horse is going one way or another, then we're able to kind of take these interventional strategies and make really good diagnostics so that we can make good treatment plans or planning around the horse's, ability to remodel around some changes that might be occurring with their musculoskeletal system that prevent the kind of injuries that we certainly want to see in order to protect the horse.
talking with Dr. Stuart Brown ahead of next weekend's opening of the Keeneland Spring Meet. As you just heard, he and his team work day in and day out to analyze horses, their movements, their physical attributes to try to prevent any type of significant injuries going forward. Doc, we're never going to take injuries out of any sport, whether it's horse racing or football or basketball or baseball, whatever the case might be. But are you confident that the industry and in particular in Kentucky, that your team is doing enough now and we're learning enough where things are changing the way that we approach equine health and safety?
Oh, yeah, I think certainly. I think, one of the other things that I think that is happening too in terms of our collaborative relationships is people are sharing experiences so that you start to benchmark best practices. And so, on the learning continuum, I think being a true horse person at heart, and a practitioner, every day that you spend with a horse, you have an opportunity to learn something. And so we build on all of those learning opportunities, in terms of continuing to do better and better all the time. And so with the emergence of a lot of, these different technologies, and so whether we talk about the sensor technologies or we talk about the diagnostic imaging, or even we just talk about the kind of monitoring that we do with the VetCam system, those things put us at an interface with the horse to have these novel conversations we open up with the trainers and with the attending veterinarians to talk about, what are the things we do to sort of come from this seek to understand perspective about how every individual horse is doing in competition. And I think, what's really kind of gratifying is to see the motivation on so many different levels for all the intersecting relationships with all these horses, that people come together and really try to drive the kind of change that we want to see for the betterment of horse racing.
Yeah, I always try to relay that message to folks when I'm doing this show or any of our programs. As a matter of fact, quite often when I'm talking to a trainer as part of my Wednesday afternoon trainer talk show, I will ask them how they are different now as opposed to when they first got their trainer's license and started training maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, and how much has the game evolved and changed, and have they had to change with it? It sounds to me like it's the exact same message on the veterinary side, where I'm sure when you first started, it was completely different than the way that things are handled today, but very much for the better. Am I right?
Yeah, I think, one of the things that I really, from an advocacy perspective and coming and taking the experiences that I had as a private practitioner and trying to come to a place like Keeneland that was foundationally built for the horse, that when you start to think about, I have a really interesting diagram that I share with a lot of my team members here, and those team members span from everyone from security to people that are part of our track maintenance team to the EMS providers to the safety specialists that work with our team, and then the folks that we have that help us with monitoring. At the center of that diagram is the horse, and the horse is central to everything that we're trying to do. And I think what we do is kind of evolve in terms of improving our understanding, because those still same qualities that we have about good horsemanship and people's ability to perceive, athletic prowess for different individuals, or the approach that they have to training, the things that we're kind of bringing to the table now is sort of actually being willing to take experiences that we have from examinations in the shed row to sort of watching the horse, loaded with weight on a racetrack, and then bring a lot of this understanding together so that it kind of reinforces everybody's confidence in the planning that they have for that each individual horse. And I think that's, really at the core of, I think, of our efforts. And, and the horse is so important to so many people, whether you're the trainer or you're the groom or you're a foreman or, you're the attending veterinarian, or even if you're a part of a racing association, we are all very passionate about the horses themselves, and they're worth all of our efforts. And so I think directing and driving a lot of those, our focus around that central topic, about where are the places that we can be found, that we can do our utmost best for the horse, is where, our motivation continues to need to be. And I'm very, very fortunate to work at a place like Keeneland, where under the leadership of Shannon Arvin and others, that, you know, you're able to have this canvas to paint on, and they say, anywhere you think that we can do something that's good for the horse, drive toward that. And so that's our focus here.
Yeah, Keeneland has always been a leader in that respect. There's no doubt about it. You've mentioned on a couple of occasions being in that horse's environment and looking at the horses in the shed row or wherever the case might be. How does that, I think most people, when they think about equine safety, they just think about what happens on the racetrack. How does it help you analyze the horse and learn by immersing yourself into their environment? How does that work?
Yeah, I think that that's really important. So, you know, one of the things that we've had since I came in here in 2020, and it's something that we worked on collaboratively with Churchill Downs, was this concept of having a safety agreement. It's something that was kind of born out of some relationships that were built upon in 2019 in Santa Anita. We've sought to kind of build upon the safety agreement piece because it's almost like a contract we have with the horsemen, but it connects every horse on our grounds to a specific trainer, to a specific veterinarian, and then back to us. And within that safety agreement are a number of different parameters that, you know, for instance, speak to things like layoff times, you know, for horses. So when they're more than 150 days prior to entry, and they give us a reason to look into the world of the horse, to go and talk to the horsemen and to evaluate those horses as they come up to. And what I find gratifying about those opportunities to create the conversation about the horse around these various parameters is you begin to understand how thoughtful people are about planning the performance of any individual horse, you know, where they're kind of targeting the next race or the next work that they kind of have, because you begin to find out that there are things they're doing to advocate for the horse that now everybody's on the same page about. And so then everybody can be aware of to sort of kind of be monitoring, you know, in terms of making sure that, you know, we can see those things and we're kind of involved in what the thought process for all those, you know, attending veterinarians and the trainers that are working with those horses, so that, you know, we're all in there kind of pulling in the same direction together on behalf of the horse. So being in the horse's environment gives you a chance to make really good observations about how the horse is doing, not just at the racetrack, but back at the barn area.
Yeah, is it beneficial then to go back even further and to immerse yourself into their environment when they're being raised on the farms?
Yeah, you know, it's kind of interesting here it's because, you know, we sit in basically this 5-county region of central Kentucky is the factory floor of the thoroughbred industry. And so we have, I just, you know, earlier this morning had a conversation with a breeder and an owner that was here who's out watching a horse that they raised and talking to me about what that horse was like as a foal and a yearling. And so it is interesting because sometimes there are things that we understand about the early development of those horses that then translates into many times. I mean, one of the things I like to tell people that's sort of really kind of interesting in terms of this job is in terms of monitoring those populations is also you have the chance to celebrate the successes of a lot of these horses, and where people have kind of, you know, taken those periods of time to manage the horse and manage through those things to have benefited the horse in terms of the recognition of that opportunity to have the horse compete, you know, in a racing situation.
Dr. Stuart Brown here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. Doc, I want to thank you on behalf of the entire industry, you and your team, for all the hard work you're putting into this and the hours you commit to keeping our horses safe. We look forward to a wonderful meet at Keeneland kicking off next week, and I really appreciate the visit here this morning.
Well, thank you so much for having me on your show, and appreciate your interest in this topic, which is so near and dear to my heart.
Keep up the great work, Doc.
Take care now.
All right, Dr. Stuart Brown here on HRRN. You know, it's such an important topic because, you know, there's that organization out there now, Light Up Racing, and they're doing great work, and I think they're going to continue to do more great work, and I'll be talking about that with those folks later on down the road here on the show. But one of their big things is putting a positive message out there for thoroughbred racing, and I have said that for years and years and years. For those of you who have been tuning into this program now for the past 21 years, you know that one of my focuses is always on defending your player. And so often when things happen in our game and the negative news comes out, which always dominates the headlines, our sport sticks its head in the sand and doesn't defend its player, doesn't doesn't put messaging out there like you just heard from Dr. Stuart Brown, doesn't let people know about all of the wonderful things that racing is doing and the great people who work so hard to make this sport a success. We don't do enough of that at all. And I think that message needs to be told. People need to know. People outside of racing, people in the industry know. People outside of racing don't. They just read the headlines in the New York Times or they see it on TV and they think, oh my God, the sport's crooked. Everybody's drugging horses and horses are breaking down at a record rate. No, I mean, yes, there's things that happen, but no, that is not the norm. That's not acceptable to anybody that works in this industry. And that's the message that needs to be told. And that's why it was so important for me to let you hear from Dr. Stuart Brown, to let you know about all of the great things that are going on behind the scenes to keep our horses safe and the people who work tirelessly to make that happen. More of those messages need to get out there. And my thanks to Dr. Brown for taking time with me here this morning. All right, when I come back after this next break, it is time for this week's edition of Kentucky Bred. Buff Bradley, the native of Frankfort, Kentucky, will join me for that segment. And then I'll get you ready for Flavien Prat coming up right around 9:40 Eastern. This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Times have changed, but some things remain timeless. Hard work, perseverance, unwavering dedication. From sun up to sundown, our passion fuels us to drive further and push harder. We do it for the horses, for our families, and for the sport we all love. For well over a century, we've committed to doing the usual, unusually well. Claiborne Farm, the tradition continues.
Juveniles offered by perennial leading consigner Eddie Woods were once again well received at this year's OBS March 2-year-old and training sale, with a colt by Champion Matoli selling for $725,000, a filly by Twirling Candy selling for $600,000, and a Twirling Candy colt bringing $550,000. Find your next winner at the Eddie Woods consignment at the OBS April sale, April 16th to the 19th. Visit eddywoods.com.
Hey, if your horse struggles with ulcers from time to time, I've got some good news for you. Reline GI by Haggard has a new improved formula, and scientific studies show that it definitely improves gut health. So what's new about Reline GI? It's made with a new beta-glucan that stimulates the immune system to work on targeted areas of a horse's stomach. Plus, there's also a new price that can save you nearly $100 per gallon. Visit ResolveVet.com to learn more about new Reline GI. Better science, better formula, better gut support.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
They come to the top of the lane. Teddy's Promise on the inside. Groupie Doll is right there. Dance Card the Grey on the outside. Sweet Lulu tries to hang tough along the inside as well. Groupie Doll hanging on. Judy the Beauty's come back at them as well, and Dance Card on the outside. But it's Groupie Doll. Groupie Doll, Dance Card, Judy the Beauty going to hit it together. Groupie Doll along the inside. Groupie Doll, Judy the Beauty. Groupie Doll in a thriller. Groupie Doll beats Judy the Beauty. Dance Card was third. Summer Applause running on late to be in a photo with Sweet Lulu for fourth.
Kentucky bred Groupie Doll making it back-to-back victories in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. With that winning performance in 2013, Trevor Denman had the call. The Kentucky homebred recorded 12 wins from 23 starts with earnings of more than $2.6 million for her trainer, Buff Bradley, who is going to join me momentarily on this week's edition of Kentucky Bred. But first, a reminder that awards up to $3,000 a race are available from the Kentucky Breeders' Incentive Fund for winning an allowance or maiden special weight race anywhere in the USA or at Woodbine Racetrack. And awards up to $4,000 a race are available for winning a non-graded stakes anywhere in the USA or at Woodbine. And that, trust me, is just scratching the surface. I'm going to tell you about more incentives right after this week's Kentucky Bred conversation with Frankfort, Kentucky native Buff Bradley. Buff, appreciate the time, my friend.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate being on.
You stepped away from a very successful training career a few years ago and now hold a new position as Associate of Sales Development with Keeneland Sales. I want to talk about that in just a minute, but let's start with the words Kentucky bred. What do those words mean to Buff Bradley?
Well, I mean, it means a lot to what myself and my father and partner Carl Hurst did with our breeding program. I'm down to one mare breeding now, but the foals that we produced and everything in Kentucky, yeah, it was a lot of money, and it meant a lot of money to us as we raced them. But now you get the breeders' incentives coming back to you, as you just stated. That's always nice to get a check about the time of year that you need it to start paying stud fees.
Yeah, how important was it to you, Buff, to make sure that the horses that you and your dad bred had that KY next to their name?
Very important, and we always, we were, of course, born and raised here, but I thought that it would be very important for everything to be, registered and be a Kentucky bred. As I said, there's a lot of money, especially added to the purse at the Kentucky racetrack. So the Kentucky breds made Kentucky racing very strong.
How much did that money that you just referenced, and I mentioned earlier as we were opening the segment, how much did that money play into a lot of the decisions that you would make with your operation?
Well, it meant a lot, and even going to the sales, my father looked to see if there were Kentucky breds, and that was number one requirement. And looking at the bottom of the page to see if they were registered Kentucky breds, that's something he wanted to always know before he even looked at the horse. So it was instilled in me to look for that first.
Has that carried over into your new position with Keeneland Sales?
Yes, it does quite a bit. I mean, I think the Kentucky breds are very strong, and you want to see that. They're running in Kentucky for a reason, that the purses are so great here in Kentucky now. And with that, the added money for being a Kentucky bred, it brings the best here, and you're going to run against the best here. So you do look for that, and especially coming to your sales.
How much different has this new role been for you in making that transition from training horses now to working with a sales company?
Well, I mean, I love training horses. There wasn't anything better, but I'm very glad that I decided to change it up, and I was ready to move on from that, and very fortunate to acquire a job at Keeneland, which has been great. And I've been up there for a little over 2 years and just love working there. It's a great place to work, a great atmosphere as far as, you've got sales and racing. So I get a little bit of everything there, and it's always changing what you're looking for.
When you retired, Buff, you retired with 575 wins, more than $19 million in purse earnings. There are two names that will always be associated with Buff Bradley, Brass Hat and Groupie Doll. How often are you still asked about those two horses?
Well, probably about daily. Yeah, and those are, just listening to the call of the race, I said, boy, that never gets old. And I still, Brass Hat's still on the farm. I don't own the farm anymore, but he's still there. So I get to go visit him, and he's doing really well. And Groupie Doll's over at Gainesway and doing well. So it's, those are two horses that really made my career.
Am I correct in remembering that Brass Hat was kind of moving on to a second career? Is that right?
He did do, my daughter showed him a bit early on, and we figured out, I mean, he was good about everything, but you could tell he wasn't really into that. He didn't like it as much. And so he moved in to a career of being a babysitter for a lot of animals on the farm.
You just mentioned how great it was to hear the call of Groupie Doll winning her second consecutive filly and mare sprint. Will you go back occasionally and watch some of the races from not just Brass Hat and Groupie Doll, but some of the top horses that you trained?
Yeah, in fact, I watched one the other day of Divisadero just mowing him down on Derby Day, and that was his third year in a row winning there. And I just thought that was special to watch him, and he's taking off in his stud career, and I'm happy for him and Airdrie, who stands him, and that, you know, he's doing well now. So that's a big plus.
Before I let you go, Buff, what message would you have to people who are considering getting into this game and looking at a part of the country or a state that they might want to set up a breeding operation or a training operation or start owning horses and running them in a state like Kentucky? What message would you have to those folks?
Well, you know what I'm going to say, and it's Kentucky, but I'm born and raised here, yeah, and I'm Kentucky through and through. I think that this state is always moving forward and always thinking ahead on both racing and breeding. I think it's the cost of having a racehorse is not cheap. So when you're running for purses like we are in Kentucky and able to, at least be competitive at this level, if you can compete here, this is where you want to be. And this is the best. And I always looked at wanting to try to, have the stock to be in Kentucky, and maybe not always had them, but that's what I strive for always when I was training. And that's what I'm striving for now, is even my horse ownership has depleted quite a bit, but I play a little bit in the game.
You always got to have a little skin in the game, and I know one thing for sure, Buff Bradley is always going to have that skin in the game in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Buff, appreciate the visit. Great to hear your voice, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
All right. Thank you, Mike.
You got it, buddy. Join me next Saturday here on the Equine Forum for another edition of Kentucky Bred, presented by the Kentucky Thoroughbred Development and Breeders Incentive Funds, providing awards up to $5,000 and $7,500 for winning a Grade 1, Grade 2, or Grade 3 race anywhere in the USA and in multiple countries, and awards of $200,000 allocated to the top 20 claiming horses in Kentucky, with the most claiming wins in the Bluegrass State. Breed them, raise them, race them. We all win with Kentucky Breds. Oh, it's always great to hear from Buff Bradley and great to catch up with him in that segment. Don't forget, you can catch podcasts or listen to podcasts of all of those Kentucky Bred segments on our website. So if you missed my visits with any of the folks I've welcomed to the program over the past 6 or 8 weeks, head back to our website, horseracingradio.net, and you can listen there to all of those, including Kurt Becker, Stroll Through Racing History, and podcasts of all of our other programs throughout the week. It's all there for you. It's a one-stop shop for every racing fan at horseracingradio.net. And if you're not already doing so, listen to our podcasts and subscribe to Horse Racing Radio Network on any podcast platform, wherever you get your podcasts, and you'll be able to keep up to date with everything happening here on HRRN. Want to throw this out another time before we get to Flavien Prat, who comes up after the next commercial break. Which Derby prep will ultimately have the most significant impact on the 3-year-old division this year? Is it the Florida Derby, or is it the Arkansas Derby? Again, you have to look ahead to the entire year to answer this question, but let me know your thoughts. You can go to our X Twitter page and cast your vote there. You can do that, too, at Horse Racing Radio Network on Facebook. And if you don't do social media, email your thoughts to me, Mike at horseracingradio.net, and let me know which of those 2 Derby preps will ultimately have the most significant impact on the 3-year-old division this year. I'm going to bring that up to Dale and Tim when they join me in the final segment of the show coming up at 10:30 Eastern. I ask, they answer. Plenty to get to, including Jockey Flavien Prat looking back on his huge weekend at the fairgrounds last Saturday and looking ahead to the Arkansas Derby later today. That's next on the Equine Forum presented by TwinSpires on HRRN, horse racing's voice.
Race the TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Race fans, due to the inclement weather, Santa Anita Park will only be open this weekend for simulcast wagering. Admission and parking are free both days. Gates open today at 7:30 a.m., tomorrow at 10 a.m. Live racing will return on Thursday, April 4th, and of course, the big day next week is Saturday, April 6th, as we present the Grade 1 Santa Anita Derby. The day will be surrounded with great events like the Derby Day 5K, a craft beer festival, and so much more. You can find all the details at santanita.com. The immensely popular Easter egg hunt returns with over 30,000 Easter eggs for your kids to hunt throughout the day on Sunday, April 7th. And we would like to thank all our race fans for their continued support of the Coast to Coast Pick 5. To show our appreciation, Sunday, April 7th, the Coast to Coast Pick 5 will be seeded with $100,000. That's right. A free $100,000 is already in that pool. Plus, there will be mandatory payouts on all pools. So it will be a great weekend to come out here to Santa Anita Park, the great race place.
Airdrie Stud is proud to announce the arrival of Grade 1 winning millionaire Happy Saver for the 2023 season. Happy Saver boasts one of the most important female families of the century, as his third dam is Broodmare of the Year Weekend Surprise, dam of the legendary AP Indy. Undefeated in his first 5 starts, Happy Saver capped off his perfect 4-for-4 season with an emphatic victory in the historic Grade 1 Jockey Club Gold Cup.
And Happy Saver stays undefeated. He steps up and he wins the Grade 1 Jockey Club Gold Cup.
Airdrie Studs, Happy Saver. Think about it.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Our pretty woman who tries to respond to Tarifa into this final fairgrounds furlong. And these two fillies face off. It is Tarifa narrowly. Tarifa from to the inside of Very Game. Our pretty woman. Vivi's Dream is third. It is Tarifa narrowly over Our Pretty Woman. Tarifa triumphant and the Fairgrounds Oaks. And it's Common Defense toward the inside. Track Phantom determined. Track Phantom sticking that neck out. Just holds Common Defense. Moving up Dusk and Gold. And here comes Catching Freedom, who's charging for Flavien Prat. They come past the 16th. Last to first. It's Catching Freedom to win the Louisiana Derby.
Welcome back to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires. John Dooley had the call of both the Fairgrounds Oaks and the Louisiana Derby. Both of those won by Jockey Flavien Prat, riding for trainer Brad Cox. What a potent combination they are when they team up. It is not just this year. They've been potent for a very, very long time, and they are excellent together. They're hoping for more success in the Arkansas Derby with Timberlake, but want to start by looking back on those 2 big wins last weekend for Flavien. It was a great day for him. He is with me now here on HRRN. Flavien, good morning, my friend.
Good morning, Mike. Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, congratulations on that success. And it seems like every time I have you on the program, I'm saying congrats, Flavien, because, man, you've been doing this at a high level for several years now. Take me back to last Saturday. Walk me through your day. You were really in the zone.
No, I just think I was on the right horses. I mean, they both, came with a shot before the race, and they delivered. She had a great run the last time, so we were expecting a good run, and she just repeated that run.
Yeah, she's very, very talented. You say you're on the right horse, but man, you need a talented jockey to make all this come together, too. So talk to me about Tarifa. What type of filly is she to ride?
She can be a bit of a strong head, as you could see last week, and she showed some speed earlier in the race. But when we got to the first turn, she was quite keen. Took me a little while to get her to relax, but she finally did it on the backside, and so I mean, to be honest, at the 3-8 pole, she she relaxed so well that I didn't know if I was done or if she was just taking a breather. But she really responded well when I asked her to make a move.
It has to make you feel good knowing how she was able to perform at that high level 2 races in a row now that you've been aboard her. Looking ahead to a race like the Kentucky Oaks, it's got to make you feel confident.
Yeah, no, absolutely. She's definitely going into the right direction at the right time, it seems like.
How about Catching Freedom in the Louisiana Derby? That was the first time you've had a chance to be aboard him.
Yeah, I was pretty impressive. He definitely finished the race very well. He showed some great run, same prior to this race. I mean, when he won the Smarty Jones in Oakland, I thought it was a great run from him. Then he ran third the last time out. I thought he ran a good race as well. It was a slopey track, so maybe, just didn't really appreciate that track. I'm not sure. But, last weekend was pretty impressive. Yeah, going from last to first the way he did it, it was very, very impressive.
Yeah, you mentioned last to first. I was going to ask you to take me through your trip in that race. So walk me through the race, finding himself at the back of the pack and then making your way through.
Well, I was further back than I wanted to be, but he broke just okay, and I just didn't have much speed in the first part, so find myself last basically. But once we get to the first turn, he was traveling super down the backside to him, and I was able to save ground in the first turn and most part of the fourth turn. But when I tip him out, he just responds super good.
You have a chance Saturday afternoon with Timberlake in the Arkansas Derby, again for Brad Cox. But Timberlake is a horse that you'll be riding for the first time too. What do you know about him?
Basically, I've been watching basically all his races. He's always been a very, how can I say? They always liked him. So it's a horse that has run all the good races as a 2 years old. So obviously know what he did as a 2 years old, and then he came back this year as a 3 years old and ran a super race in Oakland. It seems like the winter has been good for him, so we'll see what happened today, but it seems like he has a great chance.
Yeah, he's very talented, and I'm curious, when you're getting ready to ride a horse like this, especially in a big race like the Arkansas Derby or last weekend in the Louisiana Derby, and you're going to be aboard them for the first time, how does Flavien Prat prepare to do that?
Watch replays, and that's about it. We watch replays and try to see what the horse may like or may not like, and we go from there.
It's that simple. It's just replays?
Well, that's simple. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I watch, like I said, I watch a lot of replays, and even though I'm not, I haven't ride the horse, I'm trying to understand the horse, as much as I can.
How much conversation do you have with Brad Cox, either leading up to the race or in the paddock before? How does that work?
It's important to have some knowledge, and sometimes the trainer I can actually pinpoint some great advice. So it is important to have a discussion and make sure we are on the same page.
Let's assume that Timberlake runs a big race in the Arkansas Derby, and you come off of that big win with Catching Freedom last weekend. You're going to have decisions to make. I guess that's the position that every jockey is hoping to be in this time of year, right?
Well, yeah, that's like we said, that's a good problem. But as of right now, there's no decision to be made, and we'll try to win this one or run good, and we go from there. It's I won't get ahead of myself.
No, you can't.
No.
I mentioned that all of these wins are coming for trainer Brad Cox, and that this is nothing new. You have ridden for Brad for many years now and done it very successfully. Later in the show, I'm going to welcome Dale Romans and Tim Wilkin to the program, and I'm going to ask them to recall some of the greatest jockey-trainer combinations we've seen over the years, like Todd Pletcher and John Velasquez. They've always been very good together. Now there's Flavien Prat and Brad Cox more recently. Talk about that relationship that you have with Brad, Flavien.
No, I've been very fortunate to ride for a great trainer lately, and I try to embrace that as much as I can, and try to make it count. Different trainer. I had the chance to ride for Bob Baffert lately, Chad Brown, Brad Cox. I mean, it definitely helps when you ride for those kind of trainer. That's for sure.
No, there's no doubt about it. Flavien Prat here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. Timberlake, his mount, and the Arkansas Derby. You also heard him talk about the Louisiana Derby and the Fairgrounds Oaks. He has been really on a roll. You're also going to be aboard My Main Squeeze in the Fantasy Stakes for trainer Mike Maker. What do you know about her?
I don't know much about her, but she's been running super, and it seems like she has a great chance as well. I'm not sure about the draw. Number one, it's never a great draw, but it seems like she's just talented and knows how to win. So obviously, very excited to get on her.
Why do you say it's not a great draw breaking from the one hole? Why do connections cringe when they see their horse draw the inside post? What makes it so difficult, Flavien?
Well, first of all, I think horses, when they're not in between each other, you sometimes don't break as good, it seems like. And basically, if you don't break good with the one hole, everybody outside of you get you covered, and you can be a lot further back than what you want. But you just don't have as many options as when you draw, even the two. When you draw 2, 3, 4, 5, you all of a sudden you have a lot more option out of the gate. So yeah, that's what it feels like.
Well, Flavien, it's going to be a big day for you. It was a huge day last weekend. Stay hot, keep it rolling, and I'm sure we'll be talking again soon. And I hope you do have choices to make after this weekend and after next weekend. I hope you have plenty of choices. Good luck, my friend. Safe trip.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mike. Have a great day.
All right, always fun to catch up with Flavien Prat here on HRN. And you hear him talking about Timberlake and being aboard for the first time and catching freedom last weekend, watching all the replays, putting all that work in, having the conversations with Brad Cox. Every jockey will tell you they're only as good as the horse that's underneath them, but I think that sometimes they're discounting their ability and their talent too. And Flavien Prat is as talented as it gets on the jockey side of things. And let's see how things play out moving forward later today in the Arkansas Derby and in the Fantasy Stakes. All right, when I come back, it is time to take a look at a few historical dates in racing history as they apply to this weekend, and I'll get you ready for hour number 3, tell you what's ahead there. This is the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network.
Woodford Feed, where tradition merges with technology. Family owned since 1940 and providing exceptional customer service, Woodford Feed specializes in the highest quality feed, using only the finest ingredients to ensure optimal nutrition for your horses. In addition, Woodford Feed can help with all your farm needs, including field seed, fertilizer, and weed control. So whether your horse is sprinting around the racetrack or has a foal by her side, count on Woodford Feed to provide the quality nutrition necessary to perform at the highest level. Woodford Feed for Sales, Kentucky.
Retirement can be scary, but only if you're not prepared. That's why AARP created thisispretirement.org. Because unless you've already retired, you're in pretirement, and you still have time to plan. Learn about retirement savings options, potential tax breaks, and how you can build savings over time. Visit thisispretirement.org for free resources to help you customize your action plan and feel the retirement fear disappear. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
James Brown and Bill Cowher welcoming you back to Dennis Melvin's house. It's time for the Midnight Snack Run.
This is one tricky obstacle course. Sticking to healthy habits in this kitchen is going to take focus and determination, but it can be done, JB. He's already entered the snack part of the course, and he's eyeballing a jar of chocolate candy. That is tempting right off the start. Uh-oh, he's reaching, Bill, but he pushes it away. Great stiff arm. He's approaching a plate of delicious-looking iced cookies. Oh, Dennis, you only want one of those. He blows right by him for the apple. Oh, the fridge. It's make or break time, JB. He stares down some rich-looking treats. Uh-oh, looks like he's headed for the soda. Wait, he jukes left, grabs the water bottle, and shuts the door with his elbow in record time. Unbelievable move. I gotta see that again. And he's out. He even turned off the light. That's the way you execute a midnight snack run. Stand Up to Cancer and Rally want you to reduce your risk for cancer. Go to takeahealthystand.org.
Hi there, it's Scott from Pentatonics. So from the beginning of our journey in music, the foundation has been music education. It's so incredibly important that we continue to show kids the importance of music in our schools, in our homes, and even in the car. Music is such a powerful expression of emotion and individuality, and we are responsible for keeping the love for music alive. This message is courtesy of the United States Air Force.
Want to get the latest HRRN content directly on your computer or mobile device? Then subscribe to our podcasts using the Podbean app or Apple Podcasts. Just go to hrrn.podbean.com on your computer and click follow, or download the Podbean app and search HRRN. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts and listen to our latest episodes anytime. Don't miss a thing. Subscribe to our podcasts today. You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Welcome back to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on this Saturday morning. Mike Penna, Baron of the Backstretch, getting ready for hour number 3. I'll tell you what's ahead there in just a few moments. If you missed any portion of the first 2 hours of the program, well, you missed a lot. You missed my conversation with Shug McGaughey. You missed our conversation with Flavien Prat just a few minutes ago, and Dr. Stuart Brown from Keeneland talking about some of the safety initiatives there. And I had a chance to bring you some sound bites and press conferences that took place over the past couple of days in Dubai, looking ahead to the Golden Shaheen and to the Dubai World Cup. You can check out the podcast of this program on our website, horseracingradio.net, after I finish up at 11 a.m. Eastern, and you can do that on every podcast platform, and you can do that every single solitary week with all the shows and segments that we bring your way. Time now to take a look at a couple dates in racing history as they apply to this weekend. And yesterday, March 29th, 1917, was the day that Man o' War would go on to win 20 of his 21 career starts. He was foaled, by the way, at Nursery Stud in Lexington, Kentucky on March 29th, 1917. So yesterday, the birthday of the great Man o' War. March 29th, 1938. I like this one too. In observance of Man o' War's 21st birthday, the celebration was broadcast nationally via radio from Faraway Farm, where he stood at stud. How about that? A birthday party for Man o' War, broadcast on national radio. Yesterday, March 29th, also the anniversary of Diane Crump becoming the first female jockey to win a stakes race when she took the Spring Fiesta Cup at Fairgrounds aboard Easy Lime. That was March 29th, 1969. Yesterday, the anniversary of Jockey Pat Day winning his 4,000th race aboard Ann's Bid in the 9th race at Oaklawn. That was March 29th, 1988. Today, March 30th, it was March 30th, 1952 that New York Governor Thomas Dewey signed a statute transferring licensing authority from the Jockey Club to the New York Racing Commission. And March 30th, 1970, the day that Secretariat was foaled at the Meadow in Doswell, Virginia. And I'll give you one more from today. March 30th, 1985. Happy anniversary to jockey Lafitte Pincay Jr., who became the second jockey in history on that day to surpass John Logden's record of 6,032 victories, riding Sovereignty to victory in the 6th race at Santa Anita Park. Those are historical dates in racing history as they apply to this weekend and the days surrounding this weekend. We'll bring that segment back again next week and take a look at more historical dates. Next week, huge week. You've got the Wood Memorial, you have the Bluegrass Stakes at Keeneland, and then you have the Santa Anita Derby. And at that point, we will know, for the most part, the horses that are going to be competing, or at least qualified to compete, in the Run for the Roses on the first Saturday in May. But the poll question I'm asking you today involves much more than the first Saturday in May and the Triple Crown. I'm asking you, which of today's 3-year-old races, prep races, the Florida Derby or the Arkansas Derby, will have the most significant impact on the 3-year-old division moving forward? You can go to @HRRN on our Twitter page. You can go to Horse Racing Radio Network on Facebook, and you can email the show, mike@horseracingradio.net, to let me know your thoughts. Don't forget, too, when you're on our website, by the way, I don't promote this enough, but make sure you sign up for our weekly e-newsletters that we send out. We do it twice a week, and it keeps you up to date on all the guests who are going to be appearing on the show. It keeps you up to date on all of the different special segments and special weeks that we're going to be bringing you. Next week is Spectacular Bid Week here on HRRN. Begins on Monday, runs all the way through the Bluegrass Stakes on Saturday, the 100th running of the Bluegrass, and all that's presented by Keeneland Sales. So make sure you circle that on your calendar and tune in for special content all week long on our website, on our shows, and on our social media pages. Hour 3 coming up next, right after this 10-second pause for station identification. This is the Horse Racing Radio Network, where racing comes to talk.
This is HRRN, horse racing's voice.
But it's the big two. It's pleasantly perfect in Madariadoro. There's stride for stride, 150 meters out. The wins the quick. The hearts are pounding. Pleasantly perfect puts his head in front. It cracks Madariadoro. Pleasantly perfect draws clear. Wins the clip. Pleasantly perfect beats Madariadoro 3/4 of a length.
Up front, Swiss Skydiver has been masterfully handled by Paco Lopez. Turns for home with the advantage. Lucrezia to the attack is second. Lake Avenue is now third. But as they go to the first finish line, they left Paco alone. And Swiss Skydiver is a Gulfstream Park Oaks winner. She went all the way by 3 in the end.
Welcome to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires.
Here comes Concern from the back of the pack. What a late run. Through the stretch and to the wire. Concern gobbling up ground on the outside. Blooming affair between horses. Concern from last to first to win it by a long neck.
Now with 1/8 of a mile to go. Holy Bull has led every step of the way and has a commanding 4.5 down 5 lane lead. The battle will be for second. Halo's image drive the rails and go for Gin. A dramatic performance this afternoon by Holy Bull.
Now here's Mike Penna.
The sounds of 30 years ago, 1994. Dave Johnson with the call of the Arkansas Derby, Concern winning that race, and then Ross Morton with the call of Holy Bull taking the Florida Derby that same year. The two would meet later in the summer in the Travers Stakes to put on that fantastic show. But that crop in 1994, 30 years ago, was incredible. Tabasco Cat, Go for Gin won the Kentucky Derby that year. Dramatic Gold, the Californian, for Craig DeLossie, who was so impressive. You heard me talk to Shug McGaughey earlier in the program, talking about Inside Information, who won the Bonnie Mistakes, which later today is renewed as the Gulfstream Park Oaks. There was 2 Altazano, the Grade 1 winning Texas bred, Sardula, Lakeway. So many good horses. Heavenly Prize, as Shug pointed out, part of that 3-year-old filly crop that year too. 30 years ago was a pretty good time for the 3-year-old divisions, both on the filly side and on the male side. Welcome back to the program. Mike Penna, Baron of the Backstretch, with you on this Saturday morning. Hour number 3 getting ready to kick off here with the TwinSpires Triple Play, as we do every single Saturday. Vance Hanson is going to give you 3 races you can keep an eye on and bet at TwinSpires this afternoon. Kurt Becker will take you on his weekly Stroll Through Racing History, and I Ask, They Answer with Dale Romans and Tim Wilkin comes up to wrap up the show at 10:30 Eastern. But without further ado, it is time for Vance Hanson and the TwinSpires Triple Play. Vance, good morning, my friend.
Hey, good morning, Mike. It was nice to go down memory lane with you just there a few moments ago talking about that class from 1994. Just a bunch of awesome horses there, and great memories for me as well.
Yes, great memory. I remember being at the Travers Stakes that year when Concern and Holy Bull hooked up, and Holy Bull, my all-time favorite horse, but I also like Concern, and the way he ran that day, and Tom Durkin with his calls, there was cause for concern as Concern was making his run. And then, Holy Bull, what a hero, as game as a racehorse could be. So many great memories from that one particular day and that one particular year.
Yep. And the filly class that you mentioned, too, was just amazing as well. And I remember being a huge fan of Sardula and was backing her when she won the Kentucky Oaks over Lakeway, and probably one of the best stretch runs of that season as well. So, good times back then, and looking forward to the stars of today, this weekend, and next.
Plenty of good racing coming up, this weekend, next weekend. I've been talking about it throughout the show with the Florida Derby, the Arkansas Derby. Later this afternoon, you have the Dubai World Cup program, which is taking place as we speak in Dubai. The Dubai World Cup itself will be run right around 12:30 Eastern time, just a few minutes after that. So folks can look forward to that after we finish up at 11 a.m. Eastern. But Vance, let's dive into the 3 races that you have chosen for this week's TwinSpires Triple Play. We're going to kick it off at Gulfstream with race number 13. It is the Appleton Stakes, 1 mile on the turf. 5:57 Eastern is the post. Who do you like in the Appleton?
Very contentious race here. I think we're going to lose Lucky Score scratching for a race on Sunday, but still you can point to in a lot of directions here. I could see 5 or 6 possible winners. The one that I landed on is on the outside. That's Churchtown for Roger Atfield, who actually ran a very good second in the Appleton last year, losing by a half length after setting the pace nearly all the way. Because of the post position, I suspect Churchtown is going to be perhaps in a slightly stalking position here, but that's not a bad thing because there's a lot of speed to his inside, and with a strong stalk and pounce trip, I think Churchtown has what it takes to score a minor upset here in his second start off of a layoff.
I love trainer Roger Atfield, and I really love Roger Atfield with his grass horses, which is predominantly where he's had most of his success, but the Hall of Famer is just so good, and he's hard to overlook in any of these big races, isn't he?
He is, and he hasn't run many horses this winter at Gulfstream, 0 for 5 right now, but you cannot count him out in any of these races, as you said. And I was reading some quotes from him about Churchtown's last race at Tampa. Wasn't thrilled with the ride there. I think he's going to get a better one here with Javier Castellano taking the reins. So Churchtown looks like a good value play here in the Appleton.
And you expect to see him forwardly placed?
I do. If he gets out of the gate well enough, and it's going to be a short run to the first turn over that turf course going a mile. But I think that's going to be Atfield's instructions to Castellanos to get him much closer to the pace, and we'll see from there.
Good value too at 8-1 on Churchtown in the Appleton. That is race number 13 at Gulfstream. Race 10 at Oaklawn is Vance's second race he has chosen for the TwinSpires Triple Play. It is the Matron Stakes. This one for the fillies and mares, 4-year-olds and up. They're sprinting 6 furlongs. Post time 6:12 Eastern, 5:12 locally in Hot Springs, Arkansas. Who wins the Matron Stakes, Vance?
I'm going back to the well with number 2, Traverse, who I selected on a previous appearance here back on February 3rd when she was returning from a very long layoff and a 6-furlong allowance. And I thought she ran pretty well that day, considering it was her first race since late May. But she just ran into a buzzsaw named Zeitlos, who she faces again here. And Zeitlos went on to win a stakes race in between. Traverse, 6 furlongs probably isn't her optimum distance. She's probably more of a mile and a 16th type. But, Riley Mott does run her back here going 6 furlongs. I think he's, confident that she can get that with an adequate pace setup, and I think he might get it here because there is a lot of speed signed on here. She'll be much more fit than she was in her comeback allowance in early February. So, and I suspect her price is going to be perhaps double what it was that day. She started at 8-1 in her comeback. She's listed at 15-1 in the morning line here. Traverse might be a good play again. And hopefully she'll be strong enough to get the win this time.
Yeah, I don't think it's a bad play, especially if you did like her last time out in that allowance race. Do you think that she ran well on the sloppy track, so that didn't really affect her, but it was more, you think, the layoff and coming back from that freshening that took some time out of her, or some starch out of her, I should say?
Yeah, I would definitely attribute that performance to the layoff and the fact that Zeitlos was, I think, better positioned in that race over a sloppy track. Traditionally, it's tough to rally from behind over wet tracks that favor speed or horses racing a little bit closer to the pace. So I think Zeitlos had a lot of things more in her favor that day than Traverse did, but we'll see what happens with Traverse over a likely fast track this afternoon.
Do you like Zeitlos to be in the runner-up position if indeed you're right about the top pick, or do you think Zeitlos is maybe going to be a little overbet in the spot?
She will definitely be well played. I don't think she's going to be as short as she was in either of her last 2 races. I mean, she was the odds-on winner of the Carousel Stakes last time, but yeah, she's formidable. No question about it. I mean, she's enters on a 3-race win streak for Steve Asmussen. She's 2 for 2 over the Oaklawn Park Strip. She's just going really well right now, and she's just hard to dismiss.
Okay, number 2, Traverse. Big price, 15-1 for Vance Hanson in race 10 at Oaklawn, the Matron Stakes. Vance, that brings us to the final leg of the triple play, and you've gone with the Grade 3 Fantasy, race 11, 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock local time is the post, mile and a 16th on the main track. I had a chance to visit with Jockey Flavien Prat earlier in the program, and he talked about My Main Squeeze, who is breaking from the inside post, and the work that she has ahead of her, breaking from that inside post. Who do you see as the winner in here in the fantasy?
Well, I do really like Lemon Muffin coming right back off of her maiden breaking score in the Honeybee Stakes at 28-1. She just showed a totally different dimension in that race for Wayne Lucas. A maiden, and up until that race, she had gone 0 for 5, but she really thrived on the stretch out in the Honeybee, going a mile and a 16th, and just blew the doors off the competition that day. She faces a few of them back again here in the fantasy, but I suspect she's going to get a great trip under Keith Asmussen, and she's been working really well again since the Honeybee. I think Lucas has her primed for another big performance, and surprisingly, she's 3rd choice in the morning line. I don't think she's going to go off 3rd choice here. She could easily go off favored or 2nd choice, but I still think the price could be a reasonable one, perhaps 5-2, 5-2, 3-1. We'll see.
Yeah,
but
it's a well-balanced field, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And you mentioned My Main Squeeze, who this is her first start again in open company. She's been doing very well against New York bred competition, but she has a difficult task ahead of her. I mean, in addition to facing open company for the first time, this will be her first race around 2 turns, her first race outside of New York. We'll see how she handles that. But yeah, I'm sticking with Lemon Muffin here.
What do you do with a horse like Torpedo Anna, who is breaking just to the outside of Lemon Muffin? She's 7-2 on the morning line for Ken McPeak, coming back, making her 3-year-old debut in this spot. Do you see her as a player in here, or is she going to be overbet and maybe you can bet against her?
Potential player for sure. I think the morning line price is a bit too low on her. I mean, she is coming off of a long layoff, and races like the Fantasy Stakes, they usually go to horses that have been very active all winter and not as a comeback performance for a filly like her. And you also, Intricate, I was high on Intricate all winter long at Fairgrounds, but she wound up running second in the Rachel Alexandra and then ran a very disappointing race in the Fairgrounds Oaks last week. So you kind of have to wonder how good that goldenrod form is now based on that performance.
Vance, I know there's always different promotions and incentives that players can take advantage of at TwinSpires and at Brisk for that matter. And I was talking earlier about how much I love some of the numbers that are included in the Brisk Pass performances. What does this weekend entail for folks that are going to be betting the races and betting the triple play at TwinSpires?
Well, as you said, we've got a lot of great promotions. We always have our $200 sign-up bonus for new players and new account signees. And one of our long-standing promotions that we've had is the winter bet back, $10 back on your first win wager in selected races. And I know some of the applicable races today include the Florida Derby, Arkansas Derby, plus some of the 3 races on the Dubai World Cup card. So go to TwinSpires to join up and sign up if you haven't already, and take advantage of these great offers on a terrific day of racing.
All right, let me recap Vance Hanson's triple play for you here this morning. He kicks it off in the 13th race at Gulfstream, the Appleton. He'll go with number 11, Churchtown, morning line odds 8-1. In the 10th race at Oaklawn, he'll take number 2, Traverse, at 15-1. And in race 11 at Oaklawn, the Fantasy Stakes, he'll go with number 11, Lemon Muffin, at odds of 9-2. Vance, good luck with those selections, my friend. Let's get them home.
Good to talk with you again, Mike, and good luck today.
Appreciate it. Don't forget, you can bet all of those races at TwinSpires any way you like. There is no specific TwinSpires triple play wager when you go there. It's something that we incorporate into the Equine Forum here every Saturday for you. But you can take those 3 races and those opinions, and you can play them any way you like. Just make sure you're doing it at TwinSpires. I like Traverse. I think his pick on Traverse is solid. 15-1 because of that second place finish behind Zeitlos last time out in the Carousel Stakes. It's just, I mean, Zeitlos is really good. And I shouldn't say in the Carousel Stakes. Zeitlos won the allowance race 2 starts back, in which Traverse was second, and then Zeitlos came back next to win the Carousel Stakes. But Zeitlos is pretty solid. And the 7-2 morning line on Zeitlos isn't nearly as attractive as the 15-1 morning line on Traverse, looking for her to turn the tables on that rival. I don't think that's a bad play at all. And you get Christian Torres aboard Traverse for Riley Mott. I like it. I think that's a good stab on Vance's part. We'll see if he can get those 3 horses to the wire. Again, Churchtown, Traverse, and Lemon Muffin, his 3 selections for this week's TwinSpires triple play. When I come back, it is time for Kurt Becker to take you on his weekly Stroll Through Racing History, which is presented every week by Keeneland. And I told you moments ago that next week we are celebrating Spectacular Bid Week here on HRRN. That's all presented by our friends at Keeneland Sales. It will be the first of several horse weeks that you will hear celebrating Keeneland Sales graduates in 2024 that are presented by Keeneland Sales. And Spectacular Bid, a graduate of the Keeneland Sales. So I think you're going to enjoy that look back at the bid all week long, Monday through Saturday, on our programs, on our social media pages, in our newsletters, on our website. So make sure you're following along for Spectacular Bid Week all next week here on HRRN. All right, Kurt Becker has his Stroll Through Racing History next, and then Dale and Tim with I Ask, They Answer at 10:30 Eastern. This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN.
Race the TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
There's a corner of Kentucky in Bourbon County, which some refer to as the Promised Land. There's something in the soil and water that make it something special. So special that some of the world's greatest horsemen have staked their claim in the soil just outside of Paris. Iconic names such as Claiborne, Coolmore, Stone, and Darley grace the fence lines which have housed champions for generations. The name Alapa shines as a tribute to the Gilded Age, sharing the stature and grandeur of its neighbors. Born from the wealth, passion, and imagination of Edward Sims, no expense was spared to fulfill his vision. Sims was in the same league as John Madden and Arthur D. Hancock Sr. as a commercial breeder. The torch has been passed. Welcome to Hill and Dale at Alapa.
There's thrills around every turn in Hallandale Beach at Gulfstream Park with live thoroughbred racing every Wednesday through Sunday during our championship meet. It's peak season in South Florida and time for the Grade 1 Florida Derby on Saturday, March 30th. Join us in the Flamingo Room, the Carousel Club, and 10 Palms Restaurant for an unforgettable afternoon of world-class racing and entertainment. For stake schedules, tickets, and more, head to GulfstreamPark.com.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Hello, I'm Kurt Becker. Thanks for joining me as I take another stroll through racing history presented by Keeneland. He was a sickly foal which lost his dam when he was 4 months of age. He notched his first career victory on the same day that his sire died. And he bit his trainer on the morning of the Bluegrass Stakes before coming back to win the race later that afternoon. His name was Strike the Gold. Bred by Calumet Farm and foaled at the historic Lexington Nursery on March 21st, 1988, Strike the Gold was a chestnut colt which bore a resemblance to his sire, Alydar. His dam, Majestic Gold, had been a stakes winner at Churchill Downs as a 2-year-old. Strike the Gold had been a red bag foal and a so-called dummy foal at birth. The former meant that his dam's placenta separated too soon, and the latter meant he suffered from a neurological condition because of a reduction of oxygen to his body tissues. He received oxygen therapy for 3 days and had to be fed through a nasogastric tube. On top of everything else, the colt would lose his mother to the gastrointestinal disorder known as colic when he was just 4 months of age. Despite those difficult beginnings, the Calumet staff remembered Strike the Gold as a fast, strong colt. He could outrun the herd, and he liked to fight, playfully, with the other babies. The staff thought enough of him, in fact, that a groom kept the first set of shoes the colt had ever worn. Calumet sent Strike the Gold to Nick Zito for training, with the understanding that the farm needed to sell the colt. Financial woes were mounting. And so, on September 22nd, 1990, in Lexington, a deal was made which would see Strike the Gold and 6 yearlings sold to Zito's clients, Giles Brophy and William Condren, for $2.6 million. A third partner, Joe Cornacchia, would join at a later date. 2 months later, Strike the Gold would win a race for the first time in his career by taking a maiden special weight at Aqueduct by 8.5 lengths. Ironically, the win came just 6 hours after his sire, Alydar, had been euthanized following complications from surgery to repair a broken leg. The following spring, Strike the Gold returned to Lexington to run in the 1991 Bluegrass Stakes at Keeneland. Now a 3-year-old and facing a field which included reigning champion Juvenile Fly So Free, he would be competing at a racetrack adjacent to the farm on which he had been born. The day would begin at Barn 20 with Strike the Gold biting Zito on the arm. Around 6 o'clock that evening, Zito would be rolling up his sleeve to show reporters that bite mark, commenting that the bite was a playful one, and he would do so while celebrating a victory. Strike the Gold had beaten Fly So Free as well as 4 other rivals to win the 67th Bluegrass Stakes under jockey Chris Antley. Mike Battaglia with the call.
They're into the turn, no work. All play in front, now a length on the outside. Fly So Free now moves up, gains ground, also gaining ground, strikes the gold. Big Courage is fourth. They're moving for the stretch, no work, all play. Fly So Free and Strike the Gold in the center of the track. It's Strike the Gold moving by and getting the lead from Fly So Free. Strike the Gold in the center of the track is drawing away. Fly So Free is second. Then on the inside, that's no work, all play, but it's Strike the Gold. He's going to win the Bluegrass. Strike the Gold drawing out.
Just as his sire had done 13 years earlier, Strike the Gold had won Keeneland's signature event, and 3 weeks later, he went to Churchill Downs and won the 117th running of the Kentucky Derby. Dave Johnson calls him home.
Strike the Gold on the outside with Chris Antley taking command. Along the inside, Best Pal into the second spot. Main Minister is third. Coming 70 yards to the finish and far away from the rail. Strike the Gold wins the Derby by a length and a half. Under the wire second was Best Pal. Then it was a photograph between the long shot Main Minister and from far back, Green Alligator was in the photo for the show spot. And the time on the board, a slow Derby, 2 minutes and 3 seconds, but Strike the Gold strikes the roses this afternoon.
Strike the Gold's win in the Kentucky Derby marked the 9th time overall and the first time in 23 years that a horse bred by Calumet Farm had won the Roses. It was also the first win in the event for both Zito and Antley, as well as for owners Brophy, Condren, and Cornacchia. But the road after the Derby would be a difficult one. It would soon come to light that breeder Calumet Farm was $70 million in debt, and the farm would be put on the auction block in March of '92. Strike the Gold would finish off the board in the Preakness and suffer a loss by a head in the Belmont. He too would be offered at public auction in May of 1992, reportedly to settle a dispute amongst the owners. And the racing world would marvel when 4 days after going through the auction ring, he ended a 12-race winless streak by capturing the Grade 1 Pimlico Special. Retired from racing in June of 1993 and sent to Vinery Stud in Midway, Kentucky for stallion duty the following year, Strike the Gold stood 5 seasons in the U.S. before being sold to Turkish interests. He died in Turkey in December of 2011 at the age of 23 after fracturing a bone in a paddock accident. We remember Strike the Gold, the orphan foal which grew up next to Keeneland and proved that you can go home again and you can return home a winner. Please join me again next week when I take another stroll through racing history presented by Keeneland. For HRRN, I'm Kurt Becker.
And once again, my thanks to Kurt and to Keeneland for making those segments possible each and every week. If you have missed any of Kurt's Stroll Through Racing History segments, all you have to do is head back over to our website, horseracingradio.net. You can check out the special podcast page dedicated to those stories and listen to every single one. There have been some amazing ones. Go back and listen at horseracingradio.net. When I come back, Dale Romans, Tim Wilkin, they will be here. It is this week's edition of I Ask, They Answer. This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN.
This is HRRN, horse racing's voice.
Race the TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Race fans, due to the inclement weather, Santa Anita Park will only be open this weekend for simulcast wagering. Admission and parking are free both days. Gates open today at 7:30 a.m., tomorrow at 10 a.m. Live racing will return on Thursday, April 4th, and of course, the big day next week is Saturday, April 6th, as we present the Grade 1 Santa Anita Derby. The day will be surrounded with great events like the Derby Day 5K, a craft beer festival, and so much more. You can find all the details at santanita.com. The immensely popular Easter egg hunt returns with over 30,000 Easter eggs for your kids to hunt throughout the day on Sunday, April 7th. And we would like to thank all our race fans for their continued support of the Coast to Coast Pick 5. To show our appreciation, Sunday, April 7th, the Coast to Coast Pick 5 will be seeded with $100,000. That's right. A free $100,000 is already in that pool. Plus, there will be mandatory payouts on all pools. So it will be a great weekend to come out here to Santa Anita Park, the great race place.
Juveniles offered by perennial leading consigner Eddie Woods were once again well received at this year's OBS March 2-year-old and training sale, with a colt by Champion Matoli selling for $725,000, a filly by Twirling Candy selling for $600,000, and a Twirling Candy colt bringing $550,000. Find your next winner at the Eddie Woods consignment at the OBS April sale, April 16th to the 19th. Visit eddywoods.com.
This is I Ask, They Answer on the Equine Forum on HRRN.
And this Cigar, he's going a double as they turn for home with 3 furlongs to go. Macario tries to make a race of it. Cigar, the star sleeve jacket. Yellow Skies, here comes Pentire. Dane Wilkin fights no more. Soul of the Matter has made try and stride through. But Cigar goes for home. A quarter of a mile to go. And Cigar has it. But here comes Soul of the Matter on the outside. And Soul of the Matter comes to press for Cigar. America 1 and 2. Pentire back in third. They've got a furlong to go. It's a duel to the line. Soul of the Man at the outside of Cigar. And Cigar is digging deep. He's never had to fight harder. He's coming back. It's going to be Cigar who's going to take it. At the line, Cigar by 3 parts of it. 14 out of 14 for Cigar. A world champion.
That's the way it sounded in 1996. Cigar putting the Dubai World Cup on the map right from the start with his win in the inaugural running. Is the Dubai World Cup still as popular as it was back then? We're going to talk about that and much more on today's edition of I Ask, They Answer. Plus, would it be the right or wrong decision for breeders to foot the bill on an industry-wide PR campaign? And which jockey-trainer combinations do Dale and Tim consider to be some of the greatest of all time? All of those topics and much, much more are straight ahead on this week's edition of I Ask, They Answer with trainer Dale Romans and turf writer Tim Wilkin, and all presented by the University of Louisville Equine Industry Program and the College of Business. And it all starts just 30 seconds from right now.
Learn the business of horses in the world's only accredited equine business program, the University of Louisville Equine Business Program. The University of Louisville has a legacy of excellence educating and developing industry leaders for over 35 years. Classes are taught by industry experts in state-of-the-art facilities located in the heartland of America's equine industry. The University of Louisville Equine Business Program. When it comes to horses, we mean business. For more information, visit business.louisville.edu/equine.
All right, guys, plenty to talk about on this Saturday morning. We're going to start with this one. Which of the following stakes races later today will ultimately have the most significant impact on their respective divisions this year? And we'll start with the older horse races that are taking place at both Gulfstream and at Oaklawn. You have the Ghost Sapper Stakes at Gulfstream. You have the Oaklawn Mile in the older horse division at Oaklawn Park. Tim, let's start with you, my friend. What do you think? Is it going to be the Ghost Sapper or the Oaklawn Mile that will have the biggest impact on that older horse division going forward?
Do I really got to pick one of these? It's
flip a coin.
It's the Oaklawn Mile. It's intriguing a little bit because you got a lot of horses coming off layoffs. Most notably, Last Samurai, who had a really good year last year. He's won over a couple $1 million, and we haven't seen him since the Whitney. Silver Prospector for Steve Asmussen, the old war horse at 7, and he's had a pretty neat career at Oaklawn. Midnight Rising, unbeaten in 2 tries on turf. But, I don't think any of these horses in that race are going to get the juices flowing in the older horse division as we move forward. And I kind of think the same thing about the Ghost Sapper. It's always good to have rivalries in horse racing, and 2 of the horses in this race, Tumbarumba and Steel Sunshine, have had a nice little rivalry down in Florida, going at each other in the Gulfstream Park Mile and the Hooper. But I don't see either of these races as having a great significance moving forward in the older horse division. That's just the way I see it.
No, I agree with you. Some of these horses have jumped the shark and have reached their tipping point, I think, in these two races. But, I'll take a couple of at Oakland. I think Dennington could come on and be a nice horse by the end of the year. And I'm going to go with Tamarumba being a contender as he goes forward. I'm going to take these 4-year-olds, young ones, up and coming and see if they can go on and have an impact later in the year. But if I had to pick one of these two races, I'd probably go with Oakland. I think Dennington's got the most upside of the horses in both races.
It's interesting, guys, and what led me to ask you this question, we're going to do this with a couple other races here in just a minute too, but what led me to bring this up to you was when I started looking back 30 years ago on the Arkansas Derby and the Florida Derby, and I saw that Concern won the Arkansas Derby that year. Holy Bull won the Florida Derby, and we know what happened with their careers. They both turned out to be really good. And I guess the point I'm trying to make is that you don't know what you're watching here today, right? You could be watching greatness and not even know it, just like we did 30 years ago in 1994.
You're right. Same thing like when Cigar beat Holy Bull. I mean, we didn't know that was his coming out party that day at Gulfstream Park. And, Holy Bull ended up getting hurt in the race, but that was Cigar's coming out party. So it's interesting to watch what's going on today and then at the end of the year look back. We ought to have a segment at the end of the year looking back on some of these races where the horses had their breakthrough race.
Yeah,
but then we might look stupid by not saying the right things.
Hey, it wouldn't be our first time.
How about the Gulfstream Park Oaks or the Fantasy Stakes at Oaklawn? Which of those races for 3-year-old fillies, Tim Wilkin, do you think is going to have a bigger impact on the division going forward?
I kind of like the Gulfstream Park Oaks because there's a filly in here that I'm really looking forward to seeing, the Chad Brown trained Ways and Means, who's 8-5 on the morning line. I mean, Ways and Means hasn't been seen since last summer at Saratoga when she was second in the spinaway at 2-5. She got hurt in that race, chipped an ankle, and this filly broke her maiden by 12 earlier in the meet. This is an ambitious spot for Chad to bring her back in, but he wants to give her every chance that he can to make the Kentucky Oaks. And, this is a 100-point race for first place. And, this horse obviously has talent. And I think that horse, it has the potential to leapfrog over everyone and be the top of the division. I think she's that good. And there's other horses in here that have been on the trail. Fiona's Magic already has 60 points, third on the leaderboard. And that horse is trained by Michael Yates. They won the Devona Dale at 9-1. And Yates last year, you remember, had a horse named Darth Vader who won that race, the Devona Dale, at 46-1. So that's kind of an interesting story in itself. But then the fantasy, the D. Wayne Lucas's Lemon Muffin won the Honeybee at 28-1. I think that she's a little bit interesting. Kenny McPeak's Torpedo Anna, West Omaha's in here. But because of the presence of Chad's horse, Ways and Means, I point to the Gulfstream Park Oaks in this one.
Yeah, I'm really interested in watching Ways and Means run. I mean, we know the hype that went around her at Saratoga, and she lived up to it in her first race. Like I said, she got hurt the second time out. And for Chad to come back in this type of race, I mean, he's got to be fast-tracking her to the Oaks. He must think a whole lot of her. She's one of the most interesting horses on the whole day of racing across the country. And the fantasy, I don't know. These horses got to prove themselves. I mean, Torpedo Annie, I like her a lot. Hopefully she comes, but she's making her first start of the year, too. Hopefully she can jump up and run big and take them to the Kentucky Oaks. But all my focus will be watching Ways and Means.
Yeah, Dale's right. It's going to be fun to look back on our comments regarding these races as we make our way through the rest of 2024, get to the end of the year and see which race provided us with the biggest impact in these respective divisions. Tim, how about the Florida Derby or the Arkansas Derby? Which of those races will have the most significant impact on the 3-year-old male division?
I'm going to say both of them are equals in that regard. I mean, there's some really intriguing storylines in both. I mean, you've got Hades, who's all he's done is be 3 for 3 for his career, and he's the 7-2 third choice behind Fierceness, who runs good, runs bad, runs good, runs bad. If that form holds true, he's going to run a good one today. And you also have the Shug McGaughey's Conquest Warrior, who was won a first level allowance by 5 lengths at Gulfstream. That's his second win this year. And there's a lot of buzz about that horse. That horse could be any kind, and for Shug to enter in a big race, he's got something. He doesn't just show up to these races. And then in Arkansas, I mean, Timberlake, who this is part of the classic. What have you done for me lately? We haven't seen him since February when he won the Rebel, but he's 9-5 in this race. Muth from Bob Baffert, who was second in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile last year. Of course, he can't. He wins. He can't win because he doesn't get the point. He's not allowed to go to the Derby. And I'm interested to see what Kenny McPeak's Mystic Dan does in this spot. See what when he won the Southwest in the Mud by 8 lengths. There's quality animals in both these races. I mean, if I had to pick one, I'm going to give a very, very slight edge to the Florida Derby.
Yeah, I think today is the most interesting day of racing we've had all year. There's so many storylines and so many horses that are going to be interesting to watch, and a lot will be sorted out today. But I agree with you. I think Florida Derby is the race. I told you last week, Conquest Warrior was one of my Final Fours and maybe my Derby pick. I really like this horse. He's a big, beautiful horse, $1 million yearling, and he's. I like the fact that he improved off of his maiden, won by a half length in the maiden, come back from about 5, going a mile and 8. I think in Fierceness, what's he going to jump up and do? But they're both equal. It's splitting hairs to pick which one of these two races is going to produce the best horses later in the year. But I'm a big fan of this Conquest Warrior. I played golf with Shug on Wednesday. He took me and Terry Finley down to Indian Creek. We had a great day, and I know he's high on the horse. And I asked him this morning, so when is he going to Kentucky? He said, I'll let you know tomorrow. Let's see what happens with Conquest Warrior.
Who won the golf match?
We all played pretty well. I mean, but I'm going to tell you what, that is a piece of paradise. Anybody ever been to Indian Creek? And it's the most beautiful, one of the most beautiful golf courses I've ever been on. It's surrounded by billionaires all the way around, from Tom Brady to Ivanka Trump to Jersey Mike guys. Everybody's house on the course is just amazing. It was a special day.
Who picked up lunch?
Hey, Shug took care of everything. He said the day was on him, so I have to take him to my little club, Ottoman Country Club, when we get to Kentucky. It won't be quite Indian Creek, but we'll have fun.
Tim, he never mentioned the winner of the golf tournament.
I guess he didn't win then.
No, we don't talk about it. We had fun. Let's just say that.
How many balls you lose?
At Indian Creek, I didn't lose a ball. I actually played pretty good at Indian Creek. Everybody played pretty well. At the golf tournament, not so good. I lost about a half a dozen. So we had fun.
That's the key, just to have fun.
Yeah, I'd be happy with a round of golf where I only lost a half a dozen balls. I would consider that a success.
Yeah, there's not near as much water on those courses in Kentucky, and I'll be home next week.
No alligators either.
None, no. Might get a rabid squirrel, but that'd be about it.
Moving on to our next topic, and we're going to have some fun with this one too, guys. You have Jockey Flavien Prat and trainer Brad Cox, who have been really a dynamic combination in big races the past few years. Last weekend, they teamed up to win both the Fairgrounds Oaks and the Louisiana Derby. Today, the duo looks to capture the Arkansas Derby with Timberlake. So, looking back through history, what are some of the great jockey-trainer tandems you can recall? Dale, you want this one first?
Yeah, I'll take it. I said there's been so many over the years, and I like to keep track of that stuff. But I'll tell you, you can go all the way back to Ben Jones and Eddie Arcaro, the old Calumet days, how they teamed up to win a lot of races. One of my favorites was in the Ireland with Lester Pickett and Vincent O'Brien, how many races they all won together. You can come over here and look at riders like Jerry Bailey and Bill Mott, how they dominated for a long period of time. And Jerry Hollendorfer and the all-time leading rider, help me here, I can't think of his name.
Russell Bays.
Russell Bays, yes, Russell Bays, how they dominated it. And, there's been so many good teams and combinations, but those are the ones off the top of my head.
Well, you took most of mine, but all four, John. Bill Shoemaker and Charlie Whittingham had a phenomenal relationship during their careers. They won over 200 stakes races together. They dominated California racing. And, look at recently John Velasquez and Todd Pletcher. They mopped up in New York for several years, and Johnny still rides for Todd, but maybe Irad Ortiz has sort of replaced him as the go-to guy. But Irad also rides a lot for Chad Brown. And the different riders that they, are there really any guys that just ride for one outfit anymore? I don't think so. Back in the days with Dale mentioned Eddie Arcaro with the Jones boys. I mean, it's Eddie rode four of Ben Jones's Derby winners, including 2 Triple Crown winners. So, there's a lot of riders that, Angel Cordero rode for D. Wayne Lucas. He rode for Shug McGaughey. Pat Day rode for Shug McGaughey and had some great success with them. And then, maybe one of the all-time best ones that is known to a lot of people only because of the cinema was Red Pollard and Tom Smith with Seabiscuit. I don't know how much he rode for Tom Smith, but those three were linked together for all time because of the great career that they had with Seabiscuit. So, yeah, there's been an awful lot of them.
I'll give you one that probably gets lost in the shuffle, maybe under the radar. How about Shane Sellers and Frankie Brothers?
Good combination. You're right. They teamed up with a lot of good horses.
Yeah, they had it rolling for a while. Maybe more in more recent years, really the last year or two, Junior Alvarado and Bill Mott have been hot together too.
Yep, for sure. Bill Mott's always had his house rider, whether it be Mike Smith, and he's actually one who brought Mike Smith to New York, and they had a great run together. Then Jerry Bailey and Bill Mott, and now Junior and Bill.
Dale, did you have a go-to guy ever?
Pat Day. Pat Day was my man. We racked up a lot of wins together in a lot of big races, and I think I always credit Pat for helping elevate my career because I was just getting going, and he took a liking to me, and he was the best rider in the country, I thought, and he started riding all my horses, and anytime you put your name next to a guy like that, it gave you instant credibility.
Is there something to it, or isn't it anymore, where you really have a one go-to guy?
I've always tried to have one in the barn. It was Pat Day at first, and then Craig Perrette for a while, and Mark Guidry and I teamed up and won a whole lot of races, and Alvarado. But I like the guys going out there knowing they can ride their race. They're not going to get fired. I might bitch a little bit after a race, but I'll apologize later. And they can go out there and ride with their gut and ride a good race and not be thinking and worried about what's going to happen after.
Do you have more comfort from a trainer's standpoint when you got a guy that you use a lot, knowing that?
Always did, and they get to know the horses. And I think riding a whole lot of riding is like golf. Is very mental, and Pat Day's the one that told me, so don't give me too many instructions. Let me ride my race, and he knew he was never going to get fired after a race. So I think they go out there and ride relaxed, and they ride a lot better. When you go out there tense and you're worrying about getting yelled at afterwards or being fired out of the stable, it definitely would take its toll.
Flavien Prat was with me earlier, and I asked him about being in the zone when he's winning all of these races, and he said he's just on good horses. And every jockey has always told me it's the horse that's underneath you that gives you the confidence. But, Dale, you have to have some talent as a rider, because you could have a really good horse, and if the rider doesn't have talent, they can still get that horse beat, can't they?
You have to have talent. Like Pat used to say, well, they all rode bad races. The great ones just ride less bad races. And, when you get to that level like Irad is or Flavien, you can just ride with such confidence because you're not worrying about it. If your horse stumbles leaving the gate and you're dead last, you can just sit there and wait and try to finish up and get what you can, instead of, if you're nervous about what's going on, you might pick your horse up and try to rush into the race real quick and make one mistake turn into 4 mistakes. And I think confidence is a big part of it. But there's so many good young riders out there, and they're all good people, too. It's a good group of jockeys around the country right now. And you could go 20 deep if they were riding Irad's horses. I mean, Irad earned the right to ride those horses. If they were riding them now, they'd be winning exactly the same.
Yeah, Irad and Chad Brown. There's another great combination.
Yep.
100%. All right, well, let's move on to topic number 3. We've got about 7 or 8 minutes left in this edition of I Ask, They Answer, so we'll move right along. The $12 million Dubai World Cup is set to be contested in a little more than 2 hours. Does it feel like that race still has the same buzz and the level of popularity as when it was first run in 1996? Timmy, what do you think?
I think it doesn't. And trust me, I'll watch the race because I always want to watch the big races. But it just seems to me that it gets and great. It's a great purse, and it's an international flavor. But it just seems that it gets lost in the shuffle a little bit because of the Derby preps that are going on. You got the Arkansas Derby and the Florida Derby, and this race is so early in the day. And, the star power, I don't think is there anymore. At least it's not last few years. I mean, the U.S. horses that won it in the last couple of years, Country Grammar and Mystic Guide. The Japanese won it last year with Ushba Tesoro, who's going to try to win it this year. I just don't think it has the same oomph that it had when California Chrome and Arrogate and Cigar those kind of horses were running in it.
I think it probably still has it on the world stage, and maybe it hasn't been the last few years around here. But, if we have a big horse going over there that's taking his big resume with a big following, it'll bounce right back. It might have been a little low for U.S. in the last few years, but it's a great race.
One last thing on that. I was looking up how many people watch these big events, and the Dubai World Cup isn't in the top 20. Kentucky Derby is 12th. And I'm going to give you guys a little quiz. If you guys can get number 3, I'm going to buy you both dinner. The top one is World Cup Soccer with 5 billion viewers. Tour de France was second with 3.5 billion. If you guys can tell me what was third last year, you're both getting a free dinner.
The Masters.
I'll go with the Super Bowl.
You lose too. It's the Cricket World Cup.
There's a Cricket World Cup?
I guess so. I did not
know
know
the most popular sport in the world, isn't it? Because all you got to do is count India and Turkey and Asia over there. As many people as they have, they all love cricket.
Yeah. Soccer. Isn't soccer the number 1 sport in the world?
It's between soccer and cricket on view.
Tour de France and World Cup Soccer. World Cup Soccer is first, Tour de France second. World Cup Soccer men, the women is farther down.
I know when World Cup Soccer is going on, I have to put a TV in the shed row or my grooms will all be in the tack room.
That's the one time of the year I'll watch soccer is during the World Cup. I enjoy that.
That's one more time I watch it.
Yeah, me too.
All right, well, a couple more topics to get to, including our good friend Nick Zito, who we get to hear from right now. And you get to tell me if the following statement is right or wrong.
Yeah, right or wrong. Am I right? What do you think? Right or wrong?
All right, just one right or wrong topic. We'll see what Dale and Tim have to say on this one. Lincoln Collins of Kern Thoroughbreds is calling for breeders to fund a PR campaign for the horse racing industry. Collins said in an article published on Blood Horse this past week, "We create the animals, and if we don't act soon, there won't be any more horse racing and, tragically, no reason to breed racehorses. If we can't afford to pay $1,000 to qualify our foals as thoroughbreds and safeguard their futures, then we probably shouldn't be breeding them in the first place. Is Lincoln Collins right or wrong?
What do you think? Right or wrong?
Dale, what do you think?
Well, I think they should participate in the industry-wide funding of something of that nature, because we got to do something. We got to have a PR program out there. We had one. NTRA was supposed to be strictly PR, and it went political on us. We need to get something going. I think we should all contribute, whether it be purse accounts, racetracks, ADW platforms. That's a place where there's a lot of money that needs to be tapped into, these ADW platforms. And the breeders all should contribute into one fund to promote the game, get the word out on what's right and wrong, and get rid of a lot of bad rumors.
I get where he's coming from, but I could just see the breeders saying, "Oh man, you want more money out of us?" There's a place for this, but I don't know if you can just stick it all in the breeders. It's a noble gesture. I don't know if it's the right one to go to the breeders and say we got to do it. But it seems like everybody wants money, man, and I don't know if it's necessarily the right thing to just say the breeders got to do it.
Yeah, I agree. I think the idea of an industry-wide PR campaign is great. I think it's much needed. We've kind of talked about it on this program over the past couple of years from time to time. I just don't think you can go to one group of the industry and say, hey, you have to fund this, whether it's the breeders or anybody else.
Yep. Agree.
Nick Zito's back with us again for Right or Wrong next Saturday morning. Guys, we have one more quick topic to get to before you make your final point of the week. We're down to about 4 minutes here in the program. Yesterday marked the 86-year anniversary of Man o' War's 21st birthday celebration, and that was broadcast nationally via radio from Faraway Farm, where he stood at stud. It occurred March 29th, 1938. If you were in charge of national radio programming, and I might just know a guy, which horse's birthday celebration would you want to hear broadcast the most? Tim, which one?
For real?
For real.
Well, other than this show, I don't know if there's any good radio on for horse racing. And I think it's kind of tough to listen to a radio broadcast of a birthday for a horse. What are they going to do? I mean,
they did it for Man o' War.
And Man o' War, but Man o' War was almost human. But, I mean, to have a horse, I don't understand how they could do it. They're going to say, well, here comes Seeking the Gold out now, and he's going to blow out his candles and eat his cake.
Sing happy birthday to him.
Yeah, but I don't buy it. I mean, if it's for TV, fine for a birthday, but I think you got to see it rather than hear it. You don't even know if they're even doing it because you can't see it. You got to be able to see it. And you got to be able to see him open in his presence. Have the grooms and everyone out there. But I don't know if it works on radio.
No, but Secretary's birthday should be a national holiday. Everybody in the game knows Secretary. Everybody outside the game knows Secretary. But a little tidbit on that part, I might have said it before on here, but the Happy Birthday song, do you know where it was written?
Mm-mm.
Louisville, Kentucky, about a mile from the Little Dumas house by two ladies that ran a school up there. It's still a visitor site, and it's about a mile from where I live. The Happy Birthday song from Louisville, Kentucky.
See, people learn things on the show every week.
Yes.
Every week. That may be a Jeopardy question. Somebody will look smart.
I love it. I can tell you this. I probably would have listened to Holy Bull's birthday celebration broadcast on radio. That's how much of a Holy Bull freak I was back in the day. I'm pretty sure I would have listened to that on radio. There's no doubt about it. All right, time to move on to our final segment of the show because we are running out of time. It is when Dale and Tim get to make their final point of the week. Next week, this will be the West Point of the week, by the way, all the way through the Triple Crown. So looking forward to getting them back in the mix. But Tim, why don't you take it first? What is your final point of the week, my friend?
We are turning the calendar to April after tomorrow, And in 18 days, April 18th, the Oklahoma training track opens up, which is always one of my favorite days of the year because that means the horses are coming back to Saratoga. Can't wait for that.
Well, I'm going to say today's the best day of racing that we've had all year. A lot of good races, a lot of interesting horses running. And then tomorrow, get in the car, drive to Kentucky. We'll be at Churchill Downs on Monday. My year officially starts. Can't wait.
Fantastic. Safe travels, Dale. Timmy, appreciate it. Enjoy the races this weekend. Good luck, guys.
Thanks, fellas. See you.
All right, we're going to do it all over again next weekend here on HRN. If you have a topic you want to hear Dale and Tim discuss, email the topic to me. We'll get it worked into the program. That's Mike@horseracingradio.net. I Ask They Answer is presented by the University of Louisville Equine Industry Program in the College of Business. I am back with more. This is the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network, where racing comes to talk.
Hi, Tony. Hey, Matthew. There's a reason why Tony's Steaks and Seafood is my favorite restaurant. It's because I want to feel part of the family. Isn't that right, Tony?
That's right. There's a saying on the wall that I truly believe in. There's always room for one more at our table. We just want you to be part of our family.
And believe me, you will be. It's Tony's Steaks and Seafood right across from Triangle Park. Visit them at TonySteaksandSeafood.com.
Hi, this is jockey Brian Hernandez. For me, there's no bigger thrill than crossing the finish line in front, and nobody captures the excitement of our sport like Horse Racing Radio Network. Each week, HRRN brings you exclusive talk shows, podcasts, and in-depth conversations with the biggest names in racing, jockeys, trainers, owners, and more. Plus, HRRN is committed to helping disabled riders through their support of the PDJF. So climb aboard a winner today by visiting horseracingradio.net.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Well, remember that the April issue of Blood Horse Magazine and Tablet is out, and it features 130-plus pages, including a slew of fantastic stories. You can download a copy of the April issue now from the Blood Horse Magazine Tablet app via the App Store or Google Play, and order a copy at shop.bloodhorse.com, or subscribe today and save $13. You just go to bloodhorse.com/lucky to do that. Blood Horse. For more than 100 years, it has been Blood Horse. What a show. Busy 3 hours. My thanks to all of our guests who made this program possible here this morning, including Hall of Famer Shug McGaughey, Dr. Stuart Brown from Keeneland, Jockey Flavien Prat. You heard Dale and Tim in the previous segment, Kurt Becker with his Stroll Through Racing History, and Vance Hanson with the TwinSpires Triple Play. If you missed any portion of the program, head back to the website to check out the podcast, and do that too on every podcast platform. My thanks to my producer, Lee Delapina, in our Lexington studios, to Chauncey for handling all of our social media. I'm Mike Penna. Thanks for listening to this week's edition of the Equine Forum. Back with another brand new edition next Saturday. Happy Easter, everybody. Enjoy your special day.